the outlaw John Rocha. Hope you're enjoying your holiday season, however you're choosing to spend it, whether it's alone or with friends and family. Hope you had a great Christmas, or are you enjoying your Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, or however you're celebrating. And of course, Steve and I wish you a happy new year as well ahead of time if you're listening to this before the new year happens, or if you're listening to it after the new year. Happy New Year from Steve Morris and John Rocha here on the Cine-Files. Well, Steve is in Mexico this week with his family, enjoying himself and taking a much-needed break from all the work he does here on the show, and of course, other things he's working on in his life. So I'm sitting in to do the intro for this particular episode of the Cine-Files. It's our last episode of 2024, and Steve and I thought it'd be fun to do a compilation episode of some of our favorite shorts of 2024. And certainly that's something that we've done in the past, and most of you have really enjoyed our compilation of shorts, because not everyone has access to these shorts, because these shorts are on Patreon, and you can go join our Patreon at patreon.com/thecine-files. But for people who are $5 and above, they get to suggest a short or a topic for a short, or Steve and I come up with a topic if we're in the mood to discuss something. Discussions are anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on what we're talking about. Well, we put it all together here to talk about it. And so we thought we'd pick 5 of our favorite shorts from the year. We're going to start off with RDJ as Dr. Doom. You guys remember Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU, that massive announcement at Comic-Con. I had just come back from Comic-Con, and Steve and I have a very interesting discussion about RDJ coming back and how it split some of the fandom, that the reaction wasn't an overwhelmingly happy reaction, and what that means for the MCU going forward. And for other people who are coming back, as we heard in the news, Chris Evans, Haley Atwell, and others are coming back to the MCU. Then we move on to the new Auteurs, which is a discussion Steve and I had about the new auteur filmmakers that we see coming up over the last few years. How many of them do we think will endure? Which are the ones that look like they're going to become legends in the making, kind of like how we felt back in the 80s when we were watching Spielberg or Lucas or Coppola or Scorsese. You know, who are those new auteur filmmakers that are coming through? And I think it's a fantastic discussion that Steve and I have there. Our third short is Entertainment for One, and that's where Steve and I kind of dive into talking about how entertainment is being doled out and created and put forth amongst the masses now in such new and interesting ways, and sometimes troubling ways, when you look at the way we consume this content and how powerful algorithms are messing with us and how we see this content or certain content, and are the algorithms working for us or against us? So Steve and I dive into that and get real geeky on that one. And then our fourth short here is the Cine-Files Struggles. So this was a really interesting conversation, and dare I say great conversation, where Steve just hit record, and we were in a mood to just talk about our lives for almost an hour, and we cover all kinds of topics that are kind of in our minds and messing with us, and also talk about the things that we deal with outside of the Cine-Files, so that we can get ready to do the Cine-Files and can affect when we schedule our stuff, when we meet up to record. So it's a really interesting pulling the curtain to look behind the scenes on the Cine-Files, which a lot of you have asked us to do and asked us questions throughout the years about how, like, we put the show together, what goes on for us when we put the show together, how we work together. So I think we touch upon all that and other topics that are just nagging on our brains that week. So we hope you enjoy that conversation. And then our fifth one is a recurring segment on the shorts that a lot of you really enjoy. It's the FMK, which you guys know what that stands for. And if you don't, I think you can look it up. And basically, we found one that we really liked from this year, where we got really challenged by some of the suggestions from you all as patrons of the Cine-Files, and some of the suggestions Steve and I had for each other to kind of mess with each other. So it's always a fun time, if not stressful time, to do those episodes. So we picked the best one we thought of the year. So those are the 5 shorts. I'm editing this, putting them together. I'll leave about a 2-second gap in between the shorts. That's basically what I'm going to do. So thank you so much for being fans of the Cine-Files, for supporting us this year. Both Steve and I can't thank you enough. You know, the show's going on 9 years now, and we find new and interesting ways to kind of elevate the show, to evolve the show. And certainly the advisory board deserves a massive shout out. Everybody who's on the advisory board, we've had some wonderful meetings every month talking about how to make the show better, what the fans or the listeners might want to hear from us, what new segments or approaches we can explore. And they've been so invaluable in conversation with us. And we've also had wonderful times just having conversation about film. So it's a great hangout every month. So you can join that by going on to the Patreon. They're patreon.com/the Cine-Files. And of course, you can join at any level there and see all the perks that you get. And if there are any perks that you want to suggest, you can always email us or DM us or send us a tweet to let us know what you think you'd like to see in the Patreon going into 2025. What would motivate you to join to support our show? And of course, another way you can support our show is when you hear the commercials that are going to happen throughout this episode. If these products appeal to you, make sure you use that code from the Cine-Files in order to do that. Okay, for my partner, Steve Morris, I am the outlaw, John Rocha. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this compilation of 5 Patreon shorts that we're making available for everybody to listen to here on the Cine-Files. Happy New Year. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in 2025.
Hey everyone, welcome to another brand new episode of Cine-Files Shorts. I am the outlaw, John Rocha, joined as always by my co-host, Steve Morris.
Salutations, sir.
Salutations and greetings, sir. Well, we are diving into a kind of a topical short this week. You know, every once in a while, we like to go and choose a topic rather than having some of our great patrons suggest a topic for us. And of course, a big topic this week, as we're recording this, is the return of Robert Downey Jr. and lesser so the Russos back to the MCU. It's all attached here with the fact that he's coming back to play Victor Von Doom. There's a lot of conversations. Is he going to play a Tony Stark variant as Doom? Is it going to be its own Doctor Doom? Is he going to be the main Doctor Doom going forward after Secret Wars? What is his whole role in all of this? And then it came out how much he was getting paid, which is $50 million a movie, with the incentives, if they're met, to make up to $100 million per each of these Secret Wars or each of these Avengers movies, rather. And then the Russo brothers at $40 million each movie. So $80 million overall for those 2 Avengers movies. And the rumor is that he's going to appear as Doctor Doom at the end of Fantastic Four, and then go right into Doomsday and go right into Secret War. So, Steve, I've spoken about this ad nauseum all week on the Geek Buddies and with Jeff Snyder and by myself when I did the reaction on Sunday night when it happened at Saturday night when it happened at Comic-Con. So let's hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? We've covered the Marvel Universe. We've covered MCU movies. We're very well versed in Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. What was your reaction, and what are your thoughts on all this?
It's so weird. You know how like a new political issue or something comes up and you have an initial reaction, and then you go, oh, I think this about this. And then a smart pundit comes along and they say a thing. You go, oh, I hadn't really thought about it that way. Maybe I think differently. And then another pundit comes along with an opposite take and you go, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of that perspective. And maybe I think that. Yeah. I have literally gone, we talked to the advisory board about it. I've listened to, I'm on Twitter. I follow you on Twitter. I follow other people that are more geek tuned in than I am. I listened to your episode with Mike and Shannon on the Geek Buddies last night. So like I've gone all over the place about this. First, here's my let me give you my first, and I'm 100% sure about this thought.
Yeah, take us through the journey. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the first thing is a $50 million salary on a movie that is already going to have a whole bunch of other big salaries and massive special effects means this is in all likelihood going to be the most expensive movie ever made. You know, it's heading up in that.
Sure.
300 million, 400 million, $500 million. It's heading up in that direction.
Yeah.
And so when you're going, you know, it's like it's definitely a go big or go home move. And I don't think that just financially, I don't know that this makes sense. You know what I mean? That's so much damn money because now you're saying by being that expensive, you have to make not just $1 billion, but well over $1 billion in order to break even.
Yeah.
So just on the financial level, I think this seems extremely risky. My journey is the first thought I had, because there sort of seemed like a couple of different scenarios.
Yeah.
One is this character is Tony Stark-like in some way, that it's Tony Stark becomes Doctor Doom, or there's some genetic connection, or it's a variant in the multiverse, and it's some way that this is a Tony Starkish person, or it's not. And where I've really gone back and forth is this a Tony Starkish person? What would work? And the thing is, it's not just that Tony Stark had a fantastic death and a beautiful character arc and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think you can keep playing the same snarky, charming, charismatic tone and be successful. to me, that just seems like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is great.
Yes.
Obviously, he's awesome. I love him, but I get tired of that. So my gut instinct, but then I don't know if you could pull it off. Robert Downey Jr. is a phenomenal actor. He's an incredible actor. Like, he could actually play a character that is different. Then I go,
you
but
guys
will people
enjoying this
accept it?
journey with Steve Morse right now?
Yeah.
This is incredible. Go ahead, keep going. Yes.
Well, but that's the thing is, like, if he's clearly capable of completely transforming himself.
Yes.
A la Tropic Thunder, but
100%.
a lot of other movies too, including Oppenheimer, where he's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, he could play a very, very different character. But then I go, well, will anyone accept him as a very, very different character?
Right.
And B, is that going to put butts in seats? Because what people are excited about is Tony Stark. Or
Yeah.
is that what they're? So what are your thoughts? You've actually gone on this journey publicly.
Yeah.
Where are you now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a place of let's see what the story is. Because, and I tell you this, I think the big thing to look at after this, now that the dust has, or the fervor has died down a little bit on this thing, is that the reaction here has been not overwhelmingly positive. I was kind of shocked by that. Sometimes I have opinions and I'm like one of 10 people who has that same opinion. So I feel like I'm alone, like Hayward Island. They used to joke about that.
Right.
I just sometimes have a different point of view on certain things. And I appreciate that, to be honest with you. I don't like to think like the herd all the time.
Right.
So for this one, when I had a reaction, because I was not in the room, obviously, I was not in Hall H. Sitting here, when I got it, I was like, oh, wow. And then I went, wait, what? And so I just found myself in a place of like, how is this going to make sense? And it just sucks that it's not happening when Marvel is still riding a high. The fact that it's happening now when they're kind of on a low point, and I don't care what anybody says, you can trot out all your numbers, blah, blah, blah. They're totally in a low point. You trot out Multiverse of Madness, trot out those numbers, but you can't deny Quantumania was reviled. You can't deny Love and Thunder didn't do as well as they were hoping it would do. You can't deny Secret Invasion was an utter waste of time. You can't deny the Marvels completely shit the bed, regardless of whatever conspiracies and theories you want to come up with for why that happened. You have to deal with the reality. And the reality right now is Marvel has taken it on the chin quite a lot over the last few years, ever since Robert Downey Jr. died. So
Right.
Bringing him back only 5 years later, like, let that sink in. It's only been 5 years. This is essentially going on an extended hiatus. And then he's back again playing a completely different character. I think the boulder was already big that they were going to push up the hill or up the mountain. The fact that the reaction has not been overwhelmingly positive, I think makes the boulder even larger and heavier, more cumbersome, and more difficult. And look, you're bringing back a Russo's duo who has not done well outside of the MCU with almost every single one of their projects. I'm sure somebody likes all of their projects, but certainly there aren't hundreds of millions of people who liked all of their projects, or tens of millions of people, because the responses have not been great critically. They haven't been good views-wise. They haven't been good reception-wise overall, including the most recent Citadel series. So that tells me this is everybody, and Downey Jr. is coming from a strong position. I left, I won my Oscar. Now I can come back and do this without people having to constantly say, well, he's good, but only in Marvel movies. Like, I went and did what I needed to do. So he's coming back from a much stronger position into this situation, which is why he was able to negotiate what he negotiated, which essentially turned him into a king of the Marvel Universe. Nobody can say now, with the way they received him back, that he is not objectively, not subjectively, objectively, the most important person in the Marvel Universe. They're not paying Chris Evans $50 million a movie, or Scarlett Johansson, or Hemsworth, or anybody else. It's Robert Downey Jr. So you're bringing him back, but you're twisting people's minds by making him the evil guy and Victor Von Doom. And for us nerds in the bubble, this is so much fun. He's going to come back and be the guy who destroys the universe that he helped to build, if we're going to go meta. But for a lot of people, and I had people responding at a number of shows who were talking about their mothers who had no idea what the hell this meant. And
Right.
why is he coming back as a different character? So there are a lot of casual Marvel fans that I think are going to be a little bit like, what? And so you're going to have to work really hard to get them to come on board. So to me, I'm in a place of, I get why they did it. It does reek of desperation, and you never tell me that, and you'll never be able to convince me that it doesn't. But we're in a wait and see place. Can they make it work? Because if they don't, this is absolutely the last Hail Mary Kevin Feige has. So
It's okay. So I have a story to share, which is and an Orson Welles thought, I think.
Oh, I love that.
So the story is this. I was raising money for The Assistants, and after I couldn't sell the movie elsewhere, I decided to raise it by going after every family, friend, everybody I could find who had money. And I put together a business plan and a prospectus and said, here's what the budget is, and here's comparable films, and here's how much they made, and went out and pitched it and raised the money to make the movie. And then I had a buddy of mine, David Seelig, who is might very well be listening to this, an incredible supporter of the Cine-Files. And David is a businessman with an MBA who knows what he's doing, and he was raising money for a product that they wanted to create. And I remember talking to him, I was like, well, how does this work exactly? And he said, well, we look at what the market is, we look at the manufacturing costs, we look at the distribution of the product and how it will get into various shelves of Walmart or Target or wherever. And then we look at, and then if we do all that stuff, then we see how much money we're going to make. And it was all very systematic and businesslike and clear of like, and this is how you make money.
Yeah.
And I went, Hollywood is exactly the same way, except nobody knows anything, which is actually the Orson Welles quote, is that someone was asking Orson about like all the brilliant people and studio executives that have their plans to how to make a successful movie. And Orson was basically like, they have amazing plans that they've all figured out to the most minute detail, and none of them mean anything because nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Nobody actually knows ahead of time why a movie succeeds and why it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's not. So unlike my friend David's kind of layout of these products at this cost level and this manufacturing and this distribution yields this, it could be you give $50 million to Robert Downey Jr., that might work.
Yeah.
It might put butts in seats, and it might not.
Yeah.
Well, and this is what's so weird about it, is it isn't that we love Robert Downey Jr., although we do.
Yeah.
It's that Marvel fans love Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
Yes.
That is what they love. And there isn't, and so it's like, well, what do you get? Again, it goes back to this thing of, is he playing a version of Tony Stark, in which case this is really weird?
Yeah.
Or is he not playing a version of Tony Stark, in which case that's not what Marvel fans want?
Right.
Well,
That's
and the thing is they don't, just because they have always loved Tony Stark doesn't mean that they will continue to go see the movies if the movies don't continue to work. You know, like you got to evolve the character.
The stick was already getting old before he died. If people don't want it, some of y'all don't want to admit this, but you know it, like at 3 a.m. in the quiet places of your consciousness, you've had this thought. You sensed a little bit that Downey Jr.'s shtick as Tony Stark was getting a little tiresome. Did they redeem him in Endgame? Absolutely. Giving him that moment, that whole sequence with his father in that when they go back in time, that was an awesome redemption of Tony Stark. And that's how you make him someone you care about, right? But then by the time and the I Love You 3000 with his daughter, with Pepper, like all of that was perfectly manufactured to overcome any of the kind of tiredness people had of the Tony Stark shtick. So now it's back again. What is this Tony Stark going to be? Is he going to be the shtick plus being evil? I don't know if necessarily people are going to be excited about it. Plus, it's Dr. Doom. Am I supposed to be intimidated by Robert Downey Jr.? No offense, but that guy's never intimidated. He doesn't have an intimidating bone in his body that I've ever seen in any of his performances. It doesn't mean that he can't play a villain or he can't play an evil guy. Of course he can. But the threat that Dr. Doom is supposed to pose, in my mind, should have some weight, merit, and real ability to scare people in the theater or feel that sense of evil coursing through you in the theater, like Josh Brolin did with Thanos. And Josh has always had that gear within him since Goonies, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So he's always had that gear. I've never seen that with Robert Downey Jr. as he was simulating getting fucked in Back to School and all these other weird films that he was a part of from his beginning. I've never sensed that about him, So to me, it strikes me as an interesting to say. It doesn't mean he's a master. He's a master actor, but some energies you're not necessarily able to, do or grasp or make it feel organically real. So it's a great acting challenge, and I'm super curious to see if he's going to be able to pull it off. But, I have my doubts.
So two things. One is I'm now picturing young Josh Brolin with the Infinity Gauntlet taking out the bad guys in Goonies. That's the first thought. But the second thought is I agree with you about is that actors have a specific range.
Yeah.
And that could be a pretty broad range, and obviously the distance between Chaplin, Tropic Thunder, and Tony Stark, those are all totally different characters. I mean, like, and Oppenheimer, like, these are all different characters. He has a range. I agree with you. I have not seen him have the scary villain power of like a big villain yet. But and this is the thing too, is that in comic book history, these characters evolve and change. So the Captain America of 1945 is not the same as the Captain America of 1963. It's not the same as the Captain America that appears in comics in the 80s and the 90s. And then Marvel comes along and they put Chris Evans in the role and they say, this is our version. This is the Captain America of the MCU. Same with Tony Stark. Like, Tony Stark's, the character that Robert Downey Jr. plays is not the Tony Stark you would have read in the comic book in 1964. They're different. And so the same is true with Doctor Doom. Like, I have an image in my head of Doctor Doom, and is definitely not a wisecracking, arrogant, uber charming person like Tony Stark. Doctor Doom is a serious guy. Doctor Doom to me is closer to Magneto than he is to Tony Stark.
100% agree.
And again, Stan Lee had a couple of really good ideas that he repeated, and one of them is two close friends, one who is a villain, one who is not a villain, and the villain has positive reasons for them to be a villain, and Magneto and Doctor Doom are perfect examples of that setup. And so how do you meld what is the character of Doctor Doom that the MCU is going to come up with that works for this actor you've now cast in this role? That's really hard. Well, and this is the thing, this is why I dislike all of the IP-driven media that we have today, because what IP does is it says, okay, we have a Jungle Cruise at Disneyland, and we would like to figure out how to make a movie out of this. So take that property and put in characters and ideas and story plots and themes and make sure they reference that property in at least these 17 different ways as you go. That is not generally the way to make a good movie. Now, in Pirates of the Caribbean, they totally did that, and it did totally work. But it's because they found characters in a story that worked, not because the IP worked. And so now we're going, it's not just that our IP is the Fantastic Four and the Marvel Universe and Doctor Doom and this comic book source material, but now your additional IP that you're trying to figure out how to plug into this is Robert Downey Jr. He is like a thing an item you're plugging in. You're going to try to come up with a story that serves the needs of all those things. That's really hard.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't seem to be embracing too is that you could argue it's not a desperate move, because you could say, oh, it's a creatively exciting move. It opens doors for this. Like, what's it going to be like for Peter Parker to confront a villain that looks like Tony Stark or Pepper Potts or Happy Hogan or the original Avengers? Like, what is their reaction going to be? That's all fun and interesting to think about, and what that moment's going to be like. Okay, I grant you, that'll be interesting storyline-wise, drama-wise, whatever. But, I mean, when you look at the situation, they don't bring Robert Downey Jr. back if they have confidence in their universe. And the fact that this kind of low-key says that we don't trust almost any of the young actors that have come in to play these roles to help us get over the hump. We got to bring in Robert Downey Jr. And yes, they adjusted from Kang, Jonathan Majors. They certainly had a separate plan that they were going to go down until all the stuff happened with Jonathan Majors and the incidents and what have you. And so, okay, you saw that happened. They pivoted. Where did they go? They went to someplace safe. Why? Because Marvel had taken it on the chin quality-wise. But then, boom, embarrassed by Jonathan Majors, their name was getting dragged through the mud with Jonathan Majors and those accusations. Whatever your feelings are about the accusations, you can't deny that Marvel's name being paired with someone who's accused of physically assaulting his girlfriend and harassing his girlfriend is not a good look for Marvel. That's not where they want to be with their branding. So, okay, you bring in Robert Downey Jr., but you bring in Robert Downey Jr. because you don't think you can cast another actor to take the Doctor Doom role that will, get you over the hump. And you want someone who is going to get people to come and watch this, because people, after you look at the Marvels, that is both Captain Marvel, that is Spectrum, and that is Kamala Khan. And so the fact you have three of the newer actors being involved in this situation, and that film completely underperformed. Secret Invasion, in which you bring in Emilia Clarke and Olivia Colman, and you still underperform. That just tells me all around that they had no confidence in any of the actors in their universe beyond Tom Holland, who's technically part of their universe, but also maybe part of the Sony universe as well, to kind of carry the load here of the newer people that have come along. And so you bring in Tony Stark, and I likened this before on the live reaction I did. It's like bringing in an old wrestler to put the younger wrestlers over, because the younger wrestlers aren't getting over. And it just feels that way, that a lot of the younger actors and the characters they're playing are not getting over with the general public overall. So you bring in a guy like Robert Downey Jr., who's going to have his moments with all of them as he's playing Victor Von Doom or Dr. Doom, and that maybe will help them get over the hump or help them get into a better position. I don't know, but it doesn't look good that you're bringing in someone from your recent past in order to help you current, present, and future in your franchise. You know,
it's so funny because for me, in my perspective,
yeah,
it's never the actors. It's not never the actor's fault. Sometimes actors aren't good, and sometimes actors are miscast.
Sure,
that is definitely true. But again, an actor that is miscast is not the actor's fault. You know, it's not Ryan Reynolds' fault that he probably shouldn't have played Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the studio's fault. They chose to cast him. The actor's taking a gig.
Yeah.
But, and for the most part, it's like in the Marvels, like, it's none of those actors' fault. It's the movie's
those three
fault.
are really good together.
They're great.
100%.
They're great.
But
it's like, and this is true of most of, it's not, what's his name? Who's Ant-Man?
Paul Rudd. Yeah.
It's not Paul Rudd's fault that Quantumania is bad.
Yeah.
We love Paul Rudd. It's certainly not the cast of Thor: Love and Thunder that Thor: Love and Thunder didn't work. We love all those people.
Yeah.
I always am going to blame the filmmaker, the scripts, the studio. Those are the places that are making those choices. And so, like, if the conclusion is, you know, as opposed to, and you're the wrestling guy, not me, but my assumption is if a wrestler isn't popping, that is largely the wrestler's fault. You know what I mean? Like, because it is a performance, it's a live performance. They're creating their character, and I'm sure that I defer to you, but I'm sure they're positioning them in a certain way, setting up matches in a certain way, and stories in a certain way. That's true.
Yes.
But the wrestler has to find their way to pop, you know?
Yes. And that's, I think you're partially correct, but the other side is the creative, is the storylines, is the current wrestlers with you. I mean, it's a number of things, but yes, it is your responsibility as a wrestler to find a way to get over, because if you're not getting over, you're not going to keep working. So you've got to figure it out, change your storyline, change your character, pitch them all kinds of narratives. Like, it really is up to the wrestler to try to get themselves over as much as they can. So you're right in that way, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, I think about the speech that was made by the director of American Fiction, who said, hey, why don't you make $10, $20 million movies instead of the $200 million movie?
Yeah. Is
that because American Fiction made a ton of money considering a much smaller budget?
Sure.
Is that you put one actor who has 3 times the budget of American Fiction just for his salary? It's like and this is the thing, is that American Fiction works because it's a really good movie. Right. There were a whole bunch of movies that were nominated for Oscars that had really interesting, challenging, powerful stories with great performances, and that's how movies work.
Yeah.
And the fact is like in Infinity War and Endgame and the build to that, and Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America and Winter Soldier and Civil War, those work because they're good movies, you know?
Yes.
Like, Marvel built their way up on good movies, and they're falling down on less good movies.
Yeah.
And so, like, we'll just plug in the ingredients of what made us money does not actually make the movie good, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you look at American Fiction, it was made for 10 or 13, and it made, something like that, and it made 23 million. Marvel isn't happy with 13 million return. Like, they're like, we're going to pay the extra because we want to make 500 million or $1 billion or $2 billion. Because a lot of people are speculating this could be the first $3 billion box office movie, Avengers: Secret Wars. And I think what you said earlier, something I've said as well, the idea of the budget on this movie. This is, at least in my opinion, this is absolutely going to approach the $500 million range.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way that it can't with how much they're paying the Russos and RDJ. There's no way, because I mean, Jeff on the hot mic has speculated there'll be 67 characters coming back for Secret Wars. Now, does that mean with McFeely coming in and the Russos coming in, that could all change and it could be a much smaller roster and they're going to kill off a bunch of people maybe in Doomsday. Certainly possible. And maybe there's less people in Secret Wars than you thought, or maybe they're only coming in for like a scene or two, so you don't have to pay them their full rates. That's quite possible. But like, I don't know. I mean, if you're an actor in this universe and they've just paid Robert Downey Jr. $50 million, if you're Hemsworth, if you're Evans, if you're Scarlett Johansson, if you're Jeremy Renner, if you're all these Ruffalo, like your number just went up.
Yeah.
And it's just like sports. If they pay one person $50 million, you as a person who also does what they do, I don't even mean position-wise, the quarterback to the linebacker. If you're a fellow linebacker on another team, you use that contract as your starting point to negotiate if you have comparable numbers. And so that's what I see when I look at that. You think they're all going to give them a discount? Give Marvel a discount?
No.
You're out of your fucking mind. So it's just like, this is the way it goes. And you go, oh, well, then they won't be in the movie. Okay, you want to have me in the movie? Let me show you another movie that didn't have a great great actor in the role that he had made legendary. That is Tom Hagen in Godfather Part 3. You can't tell me Robert Duvall wasn't missing from that movie. He absolutely was.
Yeah.
And so it's just those situations where now you've put yourself in a position where you're going to have to negotiate with these actors. A lot of people are like, well, what if they already signed their contracts? Like, they'll break them. They'll break them if you don't don't renegotiate. Too many people live in this fantasy land. This is a reality, and this is a business. It's a business, okay? And so they're going to negotiate off that $50 million. So I'm going to be real curious to see where all that goes. I mean, Brie Larson is an Oscar winner as well. Could she negotiate a higher rate, even though Eternals didn't do well? So there's a lot of conversation. Oh, not Eternals, sorry, Marvels. The Marvels didn't do well. There's a lot of conversations to be had here.
Yeah, it's a real. I think I'm really kind of heading over as I continue to evolve on my position on this thing. I'm really heading over to your statement of that this feels like an act of desperation.
Yeah,
and it's sad because it's so funny. You and I know this is a ridiculous analogy that I'm going to make, but you and I had a show on The Nation where we were discussing Biden dropping out.
Yes,
and the thing that I kept saying that I felt so strongly about at the time, or still do, is what we need is leadership, is someone to say, this is where we're going. This is what this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that is what feels like is missing, is the actual clear vision of, I understand what is going to work for the Marvel universe and we are going in that direction.
Yeah.
It feels much more like scrambling consistently, like this doesn't work. Falcon and Winter Soldier, we need to cut that down, and that kind of cut the heart out of it maybe. This we need to change at the last minute. We're reshooting Brave New World. We're reshooting this. We're changing this. We're throwing out all these plans we built forever. And it's just like continuing to, but it doesn't feel like I am pointing the direction. This is where we're going to go. And it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, because a lot of rumors were Red Hulk was going to be a big part of Thunderbolts. That was a lot of the rumors in the initial scripts. But looks like they took him out and they've reshot Brave New World 4 times now. Wow. There've been 4 reshoots. And clearly from the footage that I was told was screened at Hall H, there is much more Red Hulk to come in that movie versus Thunderbolt. So yeah, they're adjusting on the fly. And I've had, people who work at Marvel and Disney. I know people, and I've heard sources tell me, that some of these things are being worked on up until the last minute. No matter what Feige says in those interviews, we got a 5-year plan, a 7-year plan. They're always rejiggering things. And especially now with all the hits they've taken, they're rejiggering things all the way into the last possible minute that they can.
When did Feige start at Marvel? It's early 2000, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's a good question because obviously 2008 is the first Iron Man movie, and
I feel like it's because he was involved obviously before then as they're developing all that stuff. Because to me, I kind of go, and people think I'm nuts, but maybe Feige should step down. I mean, it's 20 years on a single property. That's a long time.
Yeah, he was hired in 2000 by Marvel as a producer on the first X-Men film. Donner made Lauren Schuler Donner, who was the executive producer.
Right.
She made Feige an associate producer due to his knowledge of the Marvel universe. Then he was hired to work as second in command of Marvel Studios that same year. In the mid 2000s, Marvel still owned the rights to all this stuff. So basically he's been involved since 2000 then moved all the way up to the president of production in 2007 for Marvel Studios. Then, of course, you have Iron Man, and then, of course, they get sold to Disney. So he has been a part of the Marvel universe in terms of work since the year 2000. That's 24 years and counting.
Because I think the thing that people don't really pay that much attention to directors. We pay attention to directors' good movies. We tend to forget that most directors don't make all good movies.
Yeah.
You know, like Spielberg, Scorsese, Kurosawa, and Ford, maybe Kubrick, those are the exceptions.
Yeah.
The guys who tend to, over a long, long career, consistently make good films. And obviously, all those people might have films that we don't like, but in general, they have really good runs. Most directors are more like John McTiernan, who make, Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for October, awesome. And then, lesser movies from that point forward.
Right.
Most filmmakers, if they have 2 or 3 good movies in them, that's all you're going to get, like, and so Feige and that's not exactly true of producers, but to some degree, it's like you connect to a zeitgeist at a certain moment. Well, maybe he connected, he did it. He did what he was capable of doing in Marvel. And maybe it is time for someone with a different vision to come along and take the next steps.
Yeah, I think that is certainly where they're going to. I think he wants to shepherd it all the way through this mutant saga and then get them to X-Men, and I think he'll step down after X-Men. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Which maybe not till maybe 2028, 2029, 2030, depending on how they're going to schedule all of this.
Well, and one more thing is that all the bean counters and all of the people who are coming up with the secret ingredients to make a perfect Marvel movie that makes lots of money are now looking at Deadpool Wolverine, and they're recalculating everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's, as we're recording this, it crossed 600 million worldwide yesterday. It hasn't even been out a week.
Yeah. And I saw it yesterday, so I contributed to that.
Yeah, there you go.
We could even talk about that on another Cine-Files short.
On another short. We'll have some fun with it for sure. All right, well, there you go. That's our extensive conversation on Robert Downey Jr. and lesser extent, the Russos coming back to the MCU and what we think it means, and the tangents and the octopus legs that this story has with all the different things that it touches in our conversation here on the Cine-Files. Let us know what you thought about it. Tweet at us or post underneath the short, or just let us know what you thought about it. If you're part of the advisory board, you can always join the advisory board there at that $25 and above level for the Cine-Files Patreon. So come and tell us what you think about it in person when we meet every month as well. So for my partner, Steve Morris, I'm the Outlaw John Rocha. This has been the Cine-Files Shorts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of the Cine-Files Shorts. Thanks to all of our patrons who support us and listen to us as we do these Cine-Files Shorts. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by my partner and co-host, Steve Morris.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. And, I was ripping through some of these shorts and these suggestions, and I thought I'd pick one randomly that you don't know that I picked and read it to you and have you react to it. How do you feel about this?
I am excited, trepidatious. My heart is all aflutter. I cannot wait.
Is that 98% excited or 2% scared or 2% excited, 98% scared? All right. Ooh, it must be a comfort to know you can get a job at Helga's House of Horrors after this. Anyway, this one comes from Matt Abramson. I hope I'm saying that right. He says, he sent this to us on Facebook Messenger, and he said, I know I'm only a lowly $5 a month subscriber. Please, there's no such thing. We appreciate any level of support for the Cine-Files. I'm sure Steve agrees.
Yes.
But I have an interesting idea for a short. Are we in a new era of the Hollywood auteur director? Everyone knows 70s New Hollywood is considered the peak of the auteur director with Apocalypse Now marking the end of the era. I might say Raging Bull is. However, now I think we've entered a new era where audiences are more motivated to see a movie because of who is behind the camera rather than in front of it. Greta Gerwig, Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, and the Safdie brothers come to mind, not to mention the legends of Scorsese, Tarantino, Fincher, Nolan, and Spielberg, who are still working at a high level. Would love to hear your thoughts. Steve, are we in a new era of the auteur director?
My answer to this question would be, boy, I sure hope so. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. I don't know if we are yet. What I do think, and it's a really interesting point, I actually think there's kind of 3 eras of the auteur director, and I think each of them are responding to where Hollywood was. So Hollywood was a big machine in the 50s and 60s, and then that machine started to break down, And suddenly these directors with these unique visions that were working this other way in the 70s, they became all the rage.
Yeah.
Then you have the 80s and you have the franchise movies and the sort of Hollywood restructuring to make these big properties. And then I think you have the 90s where you have Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson and Steven Soderbergh, and you have this other rise of the indie film festival director coming out of that. And now I think we've had Marvel movies and even bigger franchises than the 80s version of this stuff. We have these whole universes being created, and that is currently in a bit of deep shit in some ways. And so maybe this is a moment where some of these, certainly some of the ones that he named, are people people are interested in seeing them for the director, not interested in seeing them for the IP property.
Yeah. I'm always of the belief of a concept that I was taught in comic books. If you're going to create a good superhero, the natural order of things is to create a bad guy. It must equal balance, right? Balance is always the point, right? And whenever a superhero shows up, all of a sudden bad guys show up. Whenever a bad guy shows up, all of a sudden superheroes show up. This is the balance and the natural order of things. And so what I'm seeing now is, because the Marvel machine and to a lesser extent DC, and then the Star Wars machine, we've seen these franchises and IPs take over the theaters, take over our conversation, take over our discussions of films. Well, to balance the order, there have been these auteur filmmakers that have come up now and are working consistently and have achieved names in the minds of moviegoers, so that moviegoers go to see their movies. I think Christopher Nolan is absolutely in that mix when you talk about auteur directors. Certainly Oppenheimer, who the fuck saw that film going across $1 billion? Greta Gerwig mentioning her, certainly Barbie, but like Lady Bird, Little Women rather, all of it in fantastic work from her. You talk about Jordan Peele marking his own path, Ari Aster marking his own path in horror. Robert Eggers is about to drop his, I think, Nosferatu, his version of that. It's going to be interesting. The Safdie brothers have broken up, but now you have each of them going their own path and creating their own work. And there's numerous other up-and-coming directors that are getting a name nowadays. And I think that's as a balance to the IP and the franchise explosion, has been this explosion of auteur directors challenging us as filmgoers, challenging us as human beings who enjoy watching films that teach us things and show us the human condition. I think we've seen that pop up because of the IP. It's a natural order of things, in my opinion.
You know what's interesting with some of them, and it's not true of all of them, but that, like, when that 90s burst of independent film happened, it was like, we're going to go into the dark places and the violent places, intense places, and we're taboo stuff. Yeah, totally. What's interesting about now, particularly I would say Jordan Peele and Greta Gerwig, is they didn't go, hey, Barbie is a huge $200 million big IP property thing. It's not an indie film. And Jordan Peele's like, no, I'm doing horror films, and some of them are, the budgets are getting bigger. And he's like, it isn't just I'm going to explore some niche of life. They seem more savvy, I think, in terms of IP and like it more, that they are excited to kind of play in those waters. And maybe that's a slightly different thing. I think,
yes, I agree. I think this is a great, okay, jump in real quick, Steve. I think what you're talking about is the evolution of the auteur filmmaker.
Right.
Now, you're right. The auteur filmmaker has now evolved to be able to direct an IP or franchise film and bring their particular style to it that keeps it feeling independent while also telling a larger story. Black Panther is a perfect example of that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and this is, I'm glad we're talking about this because I've always believed, and part of it is my background in Star Trek and, the kinds of comic books that I love to read, is that I've always believed that there is nothing that prevents a science fiction story or a horror story or a great adventure story to have great science fiction, horror, and adventure elements and great action sequence and all that stuff, and also be about something. Blade Runner being like a perfect example. There's so many where it's like, no, we actually are capable of doing these things. And I think Hollywood has tended to say, and particularly when some of these movies aren't working so well, no, we can't do that. We just had to deliver on the big spectacle and special effects. Right. But when you bring in a Jordan Peele, you bring in a Greta Gerwig, suddenly we're like, no, we can have a fun, silly, goofy Barbie movie that actually is about something and will make you cry
Yeah.
when America Ferrera makes her speech. You know what I mean? Like that we can still deal with these real things. And that's pretty exciting to me.
I agree. Or you look at something like Damien Chazelle, a director like this, who is able to make these what seemingly seem to be small films, but make them appeal to a large section
Right.
of the movie-going public. You know, with Whiplash and La La Land, and for me, First Man, which I thoroughly loved, and a few of his other films. Like there has been a crossing over here where people are appreciating and liking these directors who are pushing them in certain ways and showing them certain things. And so we're seeing more and more of that as we dive into these directors and see what they're creating. And he's even in like Babylon. I thought for all the and look, I will absolutely criticize Babylon to the nth degree because I think there are some things that don't work in that film, but there are some bold fucking choices in that movie.
Oh yeah.
And number one being how long he left it. I think it was 2 hours and 45 minutes or whatever. But this is one of the best Margot Robbie performances you're ever going to see. I thought he brought up that young Latino actor and gave him a great amount of space to show what he can do as an actor. Brad Pitt is a lot of fun in the movie. And yes, it's a commentary on Hollywood and all of that. And I don't like the ending, but some of the decisions and the filmmaking and the way he's using I thought was great. And I can't think of the director now who did Zone of Interest. Also, Jonathan, oh God, I forget his name, but he's also doing some really incredible things as a filmmaker and putting his spin on certain topics that we've seen done numerous times before, like the Holocaust. So there's so many of them coming up now that this is an exciting time to not only enjoy a bunch of young actors who are making their bones in these movies, but also the filmmakers that are accompanying these movies and bringing us into a new era of appreciating film and what the medium can do with the stories they're trying to tell that affect our world nowadays.
You know what just hit me is I think you and I both reacted strongly against this term, which is the term of we need content. We're going to create content. We got to get some content. And there's something so corporate and inhuman about describing, stuff in that way.
Yeah, movies as content. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like we need more properties. We need more IP. We need more stuff. And I think, yes, there are times where we are going to see IP. I love Batman, so I will see some Batman IP. Okay, fine. Sure. Most of our good experience is going to see art made by artists. Yeah. And I include Airplane as a piece of art made by artists. I'm not saying that this is all, highbrow material. Those guys are geniuses at doing that particular thing, and I want to see them do that. It's like, and it's funny, we just had a conversation for a short that maybe came out a week or two ago about Pluto TV and not being so much in charge of what we watch.
Right.
We're not good at picking what we want based on, what IP it is. That does not, what's really good is when, and I think this year of Oscar picks is a good example, when we're surprised, when they're, like, I didn't know that I wanted to see American Fiction or The Holdovers, but I'm really glad I did. As you said a minute ago, who saw Oppenheimer coming? But what a fantastic movie. And those movies are all created by artists who had a vision and a passion to create a thing rather than a studio that had a piece of IP that they're trying to exploit.
Yeah, and I hope there's space for these auteur filmmakers to step up to a bigger canvas and not necessarily knock it out of the park and then be able to go back to the stuff they love to do and keep working and keep creating great work. Like, look at Chloe Zhao. Nomadland is a film that just crawls up. If it works for you, that film crawls inside of your head and will stay there for the rest of your life. And then I didn't like The Eternals, but I liked Nomadland. So I'm like, okay, what's next for Chloe Zhao? I want to see what's next. Same thing with the Nia DaCosta. I liked the remake or the, I guess, requel or whatever they were doing of Candyman. I thought she did a great job with that. Not a big fan of the Marvels. Okay, let's move her into another area. Let's go. What's next? You've got something coming that I think is going to be so interesting to see. Or Barry Jenkins, right? And of course, this person mentioned Greta Gerwig. I'm so excited. Or Emerald Fennell, right? I mean, I Saltburn and Promising Young Woman are kind of cousins in the same universe in some interesting ways, but I like the ferocity of the voice in both of those movies and the gutsiness of what we see in both of those movies. Whether you like it or not, I appreciate that there's a gutsiness in the art that's making those films. And I love that. I want to see more of that from filmmakers. It's very inspiring to see that shit.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the enemy, and
Mm.
Oppenheimer and Barbie are the exceptions to this, is the
Right.
enemy is budget size. Because if you're gonna, the more millions you spend, the more cooks you have in that kitchen, the
True.
less likely you're going to get a singular vision. Oppenheimer and Barbie, I don't like the expression that they're the exception that proves the rule, but they
Yeah.
are. That's not as likely. When you get handed the big IP and it needs to connect to 17 different Marvel movies and the brand has to be protected in every way, you create an atmosphere that's really hard for an artist to do some art, you
Yeah.
know? And the thing too is what I really hate, and I know something that you have to talk about on the Geek Buddies all the time,
Mhm.
is this thing failed, therefore things like this must fail.
Yes.
Women
It's never gonna be
superheroes,
good.
the movie Marvel's failed, therefore the problem is women superheroes. It's like nobody says when the Flash fails that the problem is with male superheroes.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
says that because it would be a ridiculous statement. It's like, yeah, Marvel's didn't work as well as it could have. I actually probably liked it. There are many things I liked about it. I don't think the whole movie actually works, but I
Right.
like all the actors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's the wrong conclusion. And anyone who's made movies, I mean, we talked about 1941 recently,
Mhm.
like not a good movie.
No.
Spielberg, arguably the greatest filmmaker of all time, has made some stinkers, because it's hard. It's really hard. And most filmmakers, only make a few great ones and they make a few average ones.
Yeah.
But you should give them I want to give them the chance and give them the trust, not give the studio or the IP, go for it. Make your thing. I'm excited to see it,
Yeah. And I don't think these directors are going to achieve the kind of how can I say this correctly and make it make sense? Like, I don't think they strive to be the next Coppola or Scorsese or any of these museum sculpture statue pieces that you go and appreciate, like the sculpture of David and everything. That's not what they're out here. I like that they are hungry and want to do their film and don't want all that fame that comes with it, and don't want that. They're seeking something else. It's not validation like what Scorsese and Coppola and all of that and Spielberg, all of them kind of sought. There was listen, don't get it twisted. There's an arrogance and an ego that's involved with all of them that got them to where they're at now and keep them where they're at for all these years. But it was also that feeling of validation. Like, yeah, I know I can do this. I need people to watch my movies. I think what I like here about the new auteur filmmakers, they're not caught up in all of that. And it's much more about, can I keep making the movies I want to make? And will people keep coming to see it? Awesome. And so I kind of love that vibe, that it's changing from needing to create legendary status of these filmmakers. And it's much more about being excited to see what their next project is going to be. I don't know if I'm reading the room right, but that's what it feels like to me, from all the, I don't think Jordan Peele's like, I want to be the next Scorsese. I just don't sense that from him. It's more matter, I want to be the next Jordan Peele,
Well, exactly.
Well, which I like.
And the thing is, that's what Scorsese was doing. He wasn't going, I want to be the next John Ford, or I want to be the next,
Right.
I don't know, name some I can't put any directors in my brain at the moment, but
Right.
he had to make Mean Streets. He had to make Taxi Driver. Nobody else had to make that movie. Coppola, as frustrating as I find him, certainly grandiose, certainly arrogant, but he wanted to make personal films. He wanted to make his movies, which is, of course, the whole point. You can't. It is arrogant to say you're going to direct a movie. It is. I mean, it is. You need an ego that says, yes, I'm going to be in the center of a thing with hundreds of people and movie stars and talented actors and millions of dollars, and that the buck is going to stop with me because I'm going to make the right choice.
Yeah.
That is what you have to feel that way. And of course, imposter syndrome and insecurities, and you're going to have all those things too, obviously. But in the end, it's funny. I'm revisiting my book on directing, which I really am going to try to put out now. I know I've said this for years, but I'm working on it a lot lately. And one of the sections I was writing is on decisiveness, because I know I've told you that frequently when my student film sets, DP would come and say, well, do you want this lens, or should we push in, or should we have the actor go out of frame or stay in frame or cut here? How do you want to do this? And the director will just total deer in the headlights expression. And then we'll look over at me and go, well, what am I supposed to answer? And I'm like, you're supposed to choose. You're supposed to, because the idea of being in charge, people don't really understand what it is, you
Yeah.
know, like they
That's how
don't until you're there and everybody's looking at you and going, we need an answer or we can't move on. You don't know what it is. And the key to it, and this is, I was just writing this literally yesterday, is you have had to put, thousands of hours into your film.
Yeah.
So that you know it better than any other human. So then when they ask that question, you can give an answer,
Right.
Like, and you have to believe that your answer is the right answer or the best possible answer given a lot of crazy circumstances. That's not for everybody. And so like the idea of removing when you're like, oh, I have to conform to what the studio wants for this piece of IP, that's the antithesis of that,
Yeah. 100%, brother.
Yeah.
100%. Cool. All right. Well, there we go. I thought that was a really fun discussion about that. We hope you enjoyed that from us. Thank you to Matt Abramson for sending that on to us on Facebook Messenger. And it was a great topic for us to discuss. And certainly as I just got out of Dune, seeing that again with another, in my opinion, legendary filmmaker on his way to being a legendary filmmaker, Denis Villeneuve. It's great to see that there's all this incredible crop of directors that are coming through, and Steve and I are enjoying their movies, and we look forward to talking about them for years to come. So, thank you so much to everybody who supports us here on the Cine-Files. We appreciate it madly. We love you madly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris here with my partner, John Rocha.
Hello, everyone.
And today's suggestion comes from David Neidart, who wrote quite a long short suggestion. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, not because I don't love your beautiful writing, David, but because I'm not comfortable with my beautiful reading. I think that's the real problem. But here's the gist, is that he was asking us about water cooler shows, and that feels that the number of water cooler shows we have has kind of gone down as we have all these options in streaming, that we don't have that group moment of exploring a single show. But then he goes into something I find really interesting, which he says, now there is the discussion of individual tailored versions of shows through AI. I'm fairly concerned about what that would mean for what stories do beyond just entertainment. I think we undervalue the role of our collective experience of storytelling in that way. It's not just entertainment, but also how we form meaning, shared ideas, wrestle with ethics and morality, and stretch our understanding. TikTok and other platforms are mixed in there too, forming echo chambers. And at the end, I'd love to hear what you guys forming. All that said, I'd love to hear what you guys, this is why I didn't want to read. All that being said, I'd love to hear your guys chat about the downstream impact of more and more tailored content streams. So this is what really interested me about the topic. I mean, yes, definitely we've talked before about those shows that bring us all together, those moments of movies we all experience together. But the thing that interests me about David's question is these things that we experience on our own that are really tailored just for us, and what effect that might be having on us, and what effect it has on the kind of entertainment we experience, because it's different. So what do you think? Is this changing the way we see entertainment? Is this good for us? Is this bad for us? How are you feeling about this?
I don't know if I can say if it's good or bad for us, because we're still somewhat in the preliminary stages of this transition into streaming and into binging shows and all of that. So we're still very much in the I just learned how to walk phase of this stage of entertainment, right? I mean, it's very baby-like in its beginning, and it's kind of running before it can crawl with all these streaming services that have come out. And just like a baby that tries to run before it can crawl, it has fallen flat on its face. So when we're looking at it right now in analysis, I think the streaming services are fantastic and I do enjoy them, but there's no uniform model. And by that, I mean, like Steve and I are reviewing Shogun, which you guys can listen to our reviews on the Cine-Files podcast stream, where you can watch it on my YouTube channel. But that's a daily show. Oh, sorry, a weekly show. I'm about to start Three Body Problem, and all the episodes have come out. So the problem is that there's not the model that we had back in the old days of it comes out on ABC, NBC, or CBS, or even Fox, and it's one show a week, one episode a week. So we can all get together, have the conversation. Now, because of streaming and all of this that's happening and the tailoring of content, as David points out, now we're much more insular in how we approach our entertainment. So on one side, it's great because as much as people hate these algorithms, a lot of people would be hesitant to agree with me when I say this, but they'd have to agree with me eventually that these, for the most part, these tailored systems do work for them because they do steer them towards content that they would like to enjoy that fits their tastes that they hadn't thought about, but that was a good suggestion. So they give it a chance. So it really does work for them. And the truth is, trying to drag us back to a time when there was only 4 networks and then maybe HBO and Cinemax if your parents were rich enough, those days are over. And I think too much of our generation wants to go back to that time, and that time is never coming back. And it was great, and it was nostalgic, and it was beautiful, and it's why I watch Pluto TV every once in a while to remember that. But for the most part, those days are over. So the water cooler shows are happening as these shows drop. And working in this field of YouTube, Steve, it is so imperative for your timing. And you have a certain amount of time when the shows drop all at once, when all the episodes drop all at once. You only have a certain amount of time to watch it and then to be able to talk about it because the public has been trained to move on quickly to the next thing. And because there's so much content coming from so many different sources, both scripted and unscripted, there's not time to sit and savor and go through and parse out and break down and thoroughly enjoy a show in the way that we used to in the past. So I do think entertainment is changing for the AI and the sourcing and the installers, all that kind of stuff that works for us and the algorithm. But that's what we wanted, right? We wanted to be catered to, and now we're living in the world that we asked for.
I think so. I feel like there's a lot to unpack in everything you said, and it's a lot to think about it. Here's the thought that the quote that just keeps coming back to my head, and I don't have the exact quote, but it's Steve Jobs who said, "Our job is not to give you what you want. You don't know what you want. Our job is to tell you what you want." And there's parts of that I agree with, and parts of that I disagree with.
I agree.
Is that I think part of the greatness of Apple is that they came up with, this is what we believe this product should be.
Mhm.
We, that, and they have repeatedly done things where, the Gretzky quote of skating to where the puck is going to be, know, and the successful Apple products from the Mac, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, those are ones where they definitely did establish a new product. When we did back in the day, we did Operation Siren together, which was the interactive version of my web series.
Yeah.
And you were in it and went to Sundance, and it was really cool. And as we're making this sort of interactive movie thing, deep down in my head, I'm going, I don't like interactive movie things because you shouldn't be able to choose where you go, because the whole point of the art is that I choose for you, that I've figured out this moment and brought all of its emotional connection together. And so there's this weird thing of, we want to get what we want, but sometimes we're not the best served by getting what we want.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're the best served by, it's like, how many of the movies that we just did for our 10 days of Oscars would I have actually watched if I didn't have to watch them because I knew I was going to review them with you? I definitely probably wouldn't have watched Zone of Interest because I don't like Holocaust films.
Right.
Would I have thought to watch Anatomy of a Murder or Past Lives? Maybe not, but I was enriched because I did, So
Right.
in other words, that told me what I wanted. It didn't let me choose what I wanted. I was thinking about what you were saying about the difference between just the choice between the dump all the episodes at once versus having them come out weekly. It totally changes this, group experience thing by doing that, because if you dump them all at once, that means that somebody has to put aside a huge hunk of time to watch all the shows, which means that there's going to be some people who watch them that first weekend.
Yeah.
And there's going to be other people who watch them a week later or 2 weeks later or 6 weeks later because they're getting through the other 10 shows that were dumped on this series and this series and this series before they can make it to that one. And that spreads out the group reaction. So everybody is farther apart. Whereas if you do it like Shogun, then if people are interested in it or hear that it's by the third week, they're hearing that it's good, well, then they've caught up. And then on the fourth week, everybody's watching at the same time. And that totally changes that experience. So it's funny. I think I'm glad that more and more shows are not doing the binge watching thing, because I think it allows us to get together more on this stuff. When you get to this, to both areas of the AI, which is because we're heading in this direction of, I feel like a World War II horror story about blah, blah, blah. And then AI will create that for you. I don't trust AI to be able to bring in the true human ability thing, but I do trust it to get people to keep watching. That's what this is really good at. And this is where you go to like your Instagram feed, your TikTok feed of like, it knows when you slow down by a microsecond and watch something a little bit longer. But that doesn't mean you're getting anything good out of it. It means you slow. Like there was one time I was on Instagram and I'm lying in bed swiping up, and I saw some horrible car accident where like a pedestrian is hit by a car and goes flying.
Oof.
And I went, what the fuck was that? I didn't quite understand what I had seen. And then I went back and then I looked at it. And then Instagram fed me car accidents because it saw that I had that action. And I would have this just like when you're driving in a car and you see an accident on the side of the road and you kind of look because you can't help it. Yeah. But that I can't help looking is not actually something I want. It's not something I desire. But Instagram is now going, right now, there are skiing videos in my feed and I'm like, why? And I can't make them go away.
Right.
And this is this thing of like these algorithms feeding you what they think you want. And again, that, you know, now we go from like the network where everybody's watching it to the streaming services where many people are watching it, but they're watching it asynchronous. They're watching it at different times.
Yeah.
Then you go down to these feeds where I'm the only one who's getting the particular combo of delicious looking sandwiches, cooking techniques, skiing videos, apparently, and car accidents. That's just me. And I'm trying to make the car accidents have gone away. I would like the skiing to go away, but it's like, and at the end of a scrolling through my feed session, I feel like I've gotten nothing. Like I've wasted most of my time.
Yeah.
And yet it compelled me to keep looking. I think that's a weird place that we're in, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we're the bubble. And that's what I'm going to make clear. Like these algorithms aren't built for the connoisseurs of cinema and TV. The algorithms are built for the person who works a 9-to-5 job, comes home and doesn't want to think about what they're going to watch next. And like, hey, Charlie at the office said, this is fun. I'm going to take a look at it. Okay, you watched it. Well, here's some other things that Charlie didn't suggest that you might like, though. And so it takes the feeling, because people nowadays are overwhelmed by the amount of, even I get overwhelmed by the amount of, I'm like, full disclosure, I had an hour between lunch, between working on stuff this morning, and then a little bit this afternoon, then lunch, and before we started these recordings. And I was like, what am I going to do with this fucking hour? I could start Three Body Problem, but I don't want to start a series that I want to jump into the next episode and wait. So I just futzed around on YouTube and Pluto TV for an hour until we started this recording, because it's too overwhelming to be like, and I found like 4 things I could watch within the hour.
Oh, sure.
But then I had to choose one of them. And I was like, well, what am I really in the mood for? Fuck it. I don't want to choose. I'm going to futz around for an hour on YouTube or whatever. So this is, I know YouTube is something that's also sourced, but I go hunting for things as opposed to just accepting what they feed me. And that's the problem, which I'm roundabout getting back to for you and I, and maybe David, who sent the thing in, and those of you who are listening. If you're a connoisseur of film, of cinema and television, and even reality shows, it's a frustrating thing to be caught in the algorithm, because the algorithm is trying to make it simple for you. But if you're more of an exploratory person, I don't think it's necessarily going to satisfy you. I have that same problem on TikTok. Again, as I've said before, I only limit myself to 2 hours a week on TikTok because I will lose hours. So I limit myself. And when and like you, Steve, I happen to watch a video of a lion attacking and eating its prey. And then for the next hour, I was having to scroll past animal attack videos because they were like, oh, he likes animal attack videos. And I'm like, no, that was something that came in my feed that was unusual, and therefore I liked it. It doesn't mean I want you to keep showing me this. And so I think that's where I think the algorithm breaks down and makes it frustrating to be a part of it. Although it can lead you to discover new and exciting content that you hadn't thought about, because the attack there, the lion attack, was something that was unusual for my feed, and now I can explore this. And I think YouTube is the worst at it, because I like these samurai meditation
songs that I play sometimes to kind of calm my mind or write or do whatever. And now when I play one, now when I go to my home screen, is like 10 samurai meditation things that you could. So it just gets frustrating that the algorithm limits your mind. And that's the thing that I hate the most about having my content decided for me, which makes, I think, but we're in the minority, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I mean, I think people are not happy right now, for many, many reasons.
Okay.
Like all the statistics of happiness quotients are going down, life fulfillment, all of those things. There's all of these things going down. And the amount of time we spend on social media and looking at these feeds is a hunk of the reason, like
Yeah.
that feeling that I have at the end of a half an hour of scrolling through my Instagram feed of emptiness, of like, oh, that half hour is just gone. That's a feeling a lot of people are having in a lot of ways. And I go back to your statement, which I totally agree with, is you come home, it's a hard day of work, you're tired, you don't want to think about anything, you just want to turn something on. That's totally exactly 100% true. But what I think about is, like, back in the network television days, you had that same feeling and you turned it on. There weren't very many choices. And yes, you could have gotten a really stupid show like, I don't know, Charles in Charge or something. I don't know why I singled that out.
But how dare you? Yeah,
I loved it. I actually liked it at the time. So but or you could have turned it on and there was Hill Street Blues, or there was Mary Tyler Moore, or there was MASH, and you didn't shoot. You were tired, and there were only 2 or 3 other things to watch, and so you ended up watching Hill Street Blues, and you had this amazing experience because the show is so good. Or you watched an episode of All in the Family, and the show was so good. Or you watched I have terrible feelings about This Human Now, but the Cosby Show was an amazing show at an amazing time in the 80s, and it's like, now, when you do that and you go to your Instagram feed or your TikTok feed or you go to YouTube, you're not going to have that experience because it's not going to serve you Hill Street Blues,
right.
And the reason is that Hill Street Blues takes an investment of time and attention and energy that whatever YouTube video probably doesn't, because it's, I've used the metaphor before, but it's like, there's a reason that people seek out McDonald's and candy bars and potato chips, because they satisfy something right away that feels really good to us.
Yeah.
But then we feel like shit later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, it's sweet and it's salty and it's fatty and greasy and like awesome. I love it. But you don't feel good, whereas going to the farmer's market and getting some beautiful fresh vegetables and making yourself a delicious, healthy meal.
Yeah.
That's a big process and took an investment of time and it took an investment of energy, and you are healthier and feel better because of it. But we all work really, really hard, and life is hard and complicated and stressful. And that McDonald's thing is easier. And I just worry about us as humans and where this is going to take us.
This is what we wanted, though. And I want to make this clear. This isn't companies who impose this on us. Enough of us bitched and moaned and cried and whined that there's only 4 things to choose from. I want more variety. I want more content. If there weren't consumers and demand for the content, they wouldn't make the supply. And I think that's the thing.
Agreed.
And I think that's what some people who complain about this stuff don't take a look at themselves and their own viewing habits more deeply and realize you're part of the problem why this exists. And if you consider it a problem, a lot of people don't think it's a problem. A lot of people are like, this is great. It does the thinking for me. I don't have to worry about it. You know why? Because I don't have to watch the most recent thing and whatever. And if it's a big deal, I'll hear it and I'll know I got to watch it so I can talk about it with Shelly and Jack at the office, right? Like, there's that. But for the most part, I think most people are very satisfied with the algorithms that decide what they can suggest to them. But we're the ones that wanted to have more variety, more choices, more abilities, more say. And once we got it, now we're overwhelmed, frustrated by it, feel the pressure of having to watch things quicker than we normally would. There's all this exchange, like everything else, like everything in life. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And nothing good comes without another side to it. And so forever, I can't remember what movie it's from. It's a great line. Like, oh God, I can't remember. Oh, is it right? No, I don't know what it is, but he talks about like, for this, you're going to get this, but you're going to lose the charm of distance. Like you get the phone, but you're going to lose the charm of distance. It's a speech from a film. I can't remember it right now, but that's the thing. That's the exchange. And I think too many people. So now we're complaining that there's too much, or that they're controlling what I can watch or what I can't watch. And it's like they're at the end of the day, you're the one responsible, and you've got to do the work and go and find and explore things. And David brings up the communal experience. That's never coming back at the levels that it was before. Never. The study came out earlier last week, Steve. I don't know if you saw it, but 2/3 of adults do not go to the theaters in the numbers that they did before.
Yeah.
And I said this on Collider Mailbag years ago when I was hosting it before the COVID. Oh, I actually, no, sorry. I said this on one of my shows years ago on my channel, that once we started going towards streaming, that people would not come back in the numbers to the theater anymore. And sure enough, they haven't come back to the numbers in the theater anymore. Movies are making less. And so this is the thing overall, because people know that there's a comfort level in watching stuff at home. So the communal experience that David so well points out is never going to come back at the levels that it was, because people don't want to go to the theater. And people are more disrespectful in the theater now. People treat it like it's their fucking living room. There's no guards that kick people out for being assholes in movie theaters in the way that they should. And so people go, fuck that. I don't need to. I don't run a YouTube channel. I don't need to go and see this film the opening weekend. I wait for it to come out in 3 months. It's not a big fucking deal. And so this is the life that we live now, for better or worse.
Well, the thing is, I think it's worse. It's funny. You were very prescient about all of this, and I didn't. And I remember arguing with you, going, no, they don't go through cycles, and I think I was clearly wrong. And I think, by the way, you saying I agree with everything you said about this is what we wanted. That's absolutely true. We demanded this. We got exactly what we wanted, and this is why I started the conversation with Steve Jobs' quote of, "We're not going to give you what you want. You don't know what you want. We will tell you what you want." Because, and this is the thing, is what we wanted apparently was shitty for us in ways that we didn't comprehend when we demanded it. I mean, like one example is, and I really don't mean this a political way at all, but the basic truth is that all the news networks, liberal and conservative, love Donald Trump, because Donald Trump drives eyeballs to the news.
Ratings,
like
100%.
Newspapers sold more newspapers when Donald Trump is involved. They get better ratings because now, and again, I'm not making this. Obviously, everyone knows my feelings about Donald Trump. I'm not a fan. That is not the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make here is the constant infatuation with this particular human has not been good for us as a society.
He is like a social media feed come to life. Is very good point. Yes.
It's very hard to turn, and I have a hard time turning away from him, whether you like him or you hate him. He still is constantly there. And this is what the difference is between we should tell you what you want, what's going to be good for you, and what our natural proclivities are driving us towards weird things. Another one is, so when I was a kid, we had to watch shows that we didn't like because I was part of a family and there was only one TV. And so I had to watch Little House on the Prairie, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, but my sister loved. We watched Giants games because my dad was a Giants fan. We watched San Francisco Giants. Everyone had to watch Happy Days because that was the greatest show on television when I was a kid, in my mind. I don't particularly think that now, but at the time, Happy Days was amazing. And there were shows that my mom loved that we watched them. And what that meant was we all sat together in the same place it's not just the communal experience in the theater that is going away. This was a communal experience within the family. We were all together watching the same thing. Now all of us have screens, and many, many people I know, husbands and wives lying in bed next to each other, each with their own iPad. My son's desire to watch his own screen rather than join me to watch a movie or what. And I always go through this thing. It was like, God, if my dad was begging me to watch comic book movies and Star Wars movies and gross out comedies or anything, I would be like, yeah, Dad. And I have to drag my son away from his screen in order to watch something with me. So it's down to the family. We are becoming more bifurcated into these little slices where we're having our own completely unique catered media experience that doesn't connect us to other humans at all. It separates us completely,
Well, unless we're all like excited about a particular show, which still happens, right? But yes, you're absolutely right. Because I tell you this, For the last 2 years, our ritual, the Lady Outlaw and I, when we get in bed, is each of us gets on our phones for an hour. We play our respective games because I play crosswords to exhaust my brain so I can fall asleep more peacefully. And I know they tell you shouldn't look at, but actually I do sleep well when I do that. And she plays her 2 games that she has that she enjoys playing. We're always like touching legs, so we're still in contact with each other, but we're not. We're communally sharing the moment, and we're
Right.
communally sharing playing on our phones, but we're not communally sharing playing the same game. Do you know what I'm saying? So in a way, we've made the communal thing work at our individual level, but also found ways to connect with each other while we're doing that, so that we stay still very much, in contact, in unison with each other. And so I think that's, again, we have to work as human beings to have these things and understand the scope of what's going on. Because if we start saying, well, no, we want less, then they'll take less, and then more people will start complaining that they want more. So it's a cycle. We are gluttonous by nature as a species, and I think that's unfortunate. This is the end result of that kind of thing, and it isn't going away. It is not. These screens are going to become more and more accessible. We already see it in cars now, Steve. I was watching the new ad for the new BMW electric car. The back of the car drops down to, I think, a 36-inch long screen or 30-inch long screen that is literally a 16:9 screen that drops down from the fucking roof so that people in the back can watch the movie or watch whatever they're watching on this massive screen as if they're sitting in a mini theater in the back of the BMW. It is mind-blowing. And the Tesla screen looks like a oversized iPad. And so this idea of screens going away is not going away. And we already have a car that drives us like that Tesla does. So once they perfect that technology so that people don't blow up, people will stop driving cars for the most part, and the cars will drive them. And we're going to end up in WALL-E. And that's where we're headed.
Oh, it is.
Absolutely fucking. You say I'm prescient. WALL-E is fucking prescient. We are absolutely headed there. No doubts in my mind about it.
It was Vidiot's is the new theater that opened up. That was the old video store, and it opened up a theater in Eagle Rock. They show old movies. We just went to see WALL-E a few weeks ago, and I was watching. I had exactly that thought. I was like, I thought it was prescient when it came out. And looking at it now, I'm like, holy shit! This is you could be surrounded by 1,000 people and be 100% alone. And that is this world that we're going into. Well, and this is, the hope is that all the evolutionary things that made us crave salt, fat, and sugar, which they're using to make us all obese and fat and sickly, by selling a lot of products, that hopefully we hope that evolutionarily we'll somehow move past it so that we can survive the onslaught of McDonald's. And I kind of hope the same thing is true here. All of our things that pull us into social media, that pull us into watching these short things, that desire to get instant gratification, the desire to have those dopamine hits, that maybe we're moving past them. And I feel like, honestly, maybe I'm moving past them a little. I rarely go on Facebook these days. Like I pretty much, it's almost totally cut out. I was into that Instagram feed, but I haven't been doing it lately because it's kind of like there's nothing there. Twitter has gotten worse and worse and worse since Mr. Musk took over, and I'm still there because that's the only one I'm still really doing because of our podcast. Yep. But mostly I follow you, who I talk to regular anyway, and some of my other friends, and that's kind of it. Like because I just find it all so empty at a certain point, even though it can hold my attention, but it doesn't hold very much else for me other than my attention, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I will. This is my last words on this because I want to go back to the speech. I found it. It is a speech from Inherit the Wind, and this is what Spencer Tracy, playing Henry Drummond, says in the movie. And I think it's, again, very pressing. It says, progress has never been a bargain. You have to pay for it. Sometimes I think there's a man who sits behind a counter and says, all right, you can have a telephone, but you lose privacy and the charm of distance. Madam, you may vote, but at a price. You lose the right to retreat behind the powder puff or your petticoat. Mister, you may conquer the air, but the birds will lose their wonder and the clouds will smell of gasoline. And that's the thing at the end of the day that we always have to be aware of. What we ask for, we'll get eventually. But are you ready for the price you're going to pay for the thing you got? because you can't really complain about it if you wanted it. And now that you got it and you can't deal with the consequences, boo hoo, and that's the way I look at it, honestly,
I can't add anything to that. I think that is a perfect place to end this, David. Thank you so much for your
Yeah, thank you, David.
suggestion. And thank you for everyone out there on Patreon and on Apple Podcasts who supports the Cine-Files.
Let's do it. Play old commercials from like McDonald's. Talk about
Yeah,
styrofoam containers.
I just hit record because John said we should start a new podcast called Old Man Chronicles. And here we are. Welcome to Old Man Chronicles. My name is Steve Morris, one of your old man hosts.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. Yeah, he does this every once in a while, just hits record. But yeah, I'm having a bit of a rough morning here because it's Saturday at Comic-Con. I'm not making it in because of the COVID and hall age paranoia that I have. And everyone I run into says, you're going to get COVID. You're going to get COVID. So I'm just sitting here and Steve and I were about to record an ad, but the reason we're talking about this is because like Roundhouse Provisions is one of our great sponsors right now. And Steve is trying out the product and I'm going to be trying it out soon. And I was just talking to him about getting older and gut health. And I was watching a episode of Mom where an actor who you guys remember from Raising Arizona, he says to Anna Faris when she says, come on into the bar and get some wings. He goes, I'm in my 60s. There's not enough Prilosec in the world to get me in a bar to eat wings. And I just thought to myself, is that what I have to look forward to? Is like the limiting the amount of or the kind of food that I can eat as I get older? Is this the game now? I'm a little okay. I'm the 60s are there on the horizon, Steve, and it just concerns me that I'm going to have to stop eating certain foods or stop eating certain things that make me happy. And I'm a guy that still eats cereal, still eats chicken wings, still eats the 7-Eleven Big Bite every once in a while. Once a week at least hits McDonald's breakfast, just big breakfast. So I just thought to myself, my God, is this what's coming?
Now, I'm a bit older than you, and so I feel like I've I think it's a case-by-case basis. I mean, so I have two thoughts to put forward. The first one is that I know people who ate crap into their 80s.
Really?
In fact, there is a guy, I know this is going to sound unbelievable.
You know a guy
who is, I think, 78 years old.
Wow.
It eats nothing but crap.
Wow.
And is running for president of the United States.
Well, I don't know if that's true, because I wonder if all of that is just like for show, when in fact they're carefully curating his diet to make sure he lives long enough to run for president and if he wins, possibly serve out the 4 years.
I don't think it's for show, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's for show. Is nobody has the ability to control that guy at all. Well, so like the idea that there would be that someone would come in and say, no, Mr. President, you can't eat that cheeseburger or that well done steak. We're going to give you some Brussels sprouts and a nice tofu dish. That's not happening. So
if you're a multimillionaire, why are you eating at McDonald's? Like, I would never eat at McDonald's if I was a multimillionaire. I'd have a chef who made me healthy food all the time.
So first of all, McDonald's, as much as it literally makes me sick, is delicious.
Yeah, it is very delicious.
Yes. I like the taste of it for a certain thing. My stomach is pretty tough in terms of like what the consequences are the next day.
Yeah.
But my cholesterol is not.
Oh,
so like
interesting.
So like, I don't so much worry about like, can my stomach handle this thing?
Mm-hmm.
I worry about I'm gonna die. Like that's that's why like if I don't like being a fat person, but and I would prefer to be a thin person. But the reason that I'm on Wegovy and the reason that I'm trying to lose weight is because I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave my kid without a dad. I don't want to. That's the big thing for me.
Your co-host without a partner. Yes.
Exactly. Those are my top two priorities. Leave my kid without a father.
Divorced. I moved up.
It's close too. It's a close one. So
Yeah.
like but you're right, because I go like, okay, I'm 55, I'm about to be 56.
Yeah.
60 is close.
Yeah.
My dad died at 70,
Yeah. My dad
you
died at
know?
72.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My grandfather Bob died at 62.
Oof.
You know,
Yeah.
my grandmother Eileen was in her mid 60s, I think, when she died.
Wow.
And my family's totally split, by the way. So it's
Yeah.
either dying in your 60s or living into your 80s or 90s. That
Wow.
seems to be most of my, it's like it just so I'm hoping that I got the good genetics,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, I and I'll tell you the other thought I've had, by the way,
Okay.
and this is it's just, and it's related to the COVID, your COVID fear is,
Yeah.
like, on the one hand, I think humans figure themselves out as they get older, and some of
Yeah.
the craziness of our youth, we've gotten past
Yeah.
some of those insecurities. But I also think humans get crazier as we get older and more insular in ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I am a certain set of neuroses have turned way down, but another set of neuroses have turned way up. And my
Yeah.
hermitness, and I know you relate to this,
Yeah.
is way up, like to an unhealthy degree. I don't
You,
go out, you know.
yeah. No, yes, I am ever since COVID because we transitioned to COVID very easily. And of course, I'm not saying this in any way to denigrate anyone's experience. We know a lot of people experience a lot of negative stuff during that time of COVID. In fact, the other night when we were at a Comic-Con, we were hanging out with someone who works for WB, is someone that I got to know last year, and it was great to see her again this year. But she spoke about what it was like during the time of COVID when the kids were kept out of school, and that some of her common mom friends had kids who were kept out of school during formative years in high school. And I had never considered that situation for that particular age group, how that can affect socialization, how it can affect anxiety, affect how how you grow and deal with people, like all these things that you learn in your teenage years, both positive and negative, about social interactions in groups, about status, all of that stuff was kind of removed for a lot of kids who didn't experience that in certain states. And so I hadn't even considered that because for me, I know COVID was easy for us because Lindley is a natural introvert and she doesn't like to be around a lot of people. When she is, she's certainly the belle of the ball, but she's so dead afterwards, like for days afterwards. It takes so much energy out of her. For me, I've always had half introvert, half extrovert tendencies, but I have found that I'm becoming much more of an introvert. I'm not becoming an agoraphobic, like I'm not afraid to leave the house and go get food or whatever. I'm just like the exhaustion that comes over me thinking about all I have to do to get ready to go to a place and then to subject myself to the amount of energy it takes to go through something like that. It becomes debilitating for me now at this age where I just go, I don't know. Like it was everything I could to go to Comic-Con the other day, and I'll go again tomorrow as we're recording this on the Saturday. But thinking about going to Comic-Con on a Saturday with all those people and my fear of getting COVID again, which almost wrecked me and killed me, and my fear of dealing with just all of it, like my anxiety just went to 100% in ways that this is all so new to me over the last few years, Steve. Like I had issues with going to places and I'd have a little bit of anxiety, whatever. But like the way it is now, it's almost crippling in the way I go like, no, I'm just going to stay home. I've got my TV. I've got my comfortable couches. I can watch what I want. I can record videos for my channel if I want. I can do whatever I want. Why would I go out into a situation where I can't control anything and subject myself possibly to getting some disease or possibly getting something? So yeah, it's become like that for me for sure, man.
So I don't have the COVID fear. Like that's not one
Yeah.
but there, COVID clearly did something to me. And I think it was the combo of a lot
Yep.
of different stuff that really changed me. I mean, first of all, just to the kid thing,
Yeah.
COVID was brutal because we had our kid home, we had an ADHD kid home every day trying to do school. And the only way, what's interesting was, and I think I probably said this on the podcast at some point,
Yeah.
academically, COVID was the best thing that could have happened to my son
Oh,
because
yeah.
we didn't really understand how completely lost he was at school. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't just mean like lost, like he didn't know, understand the topic. I mean that he got lost, like they didn't know. He just kind of disappeared on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And so he had spent, you know, we would go into these parent teacher conferences when he was in like third grade, and everybody, all the kids had their art on the walls and little packets on their desks of all their work, and our kid had nothing.
Yeah.
He had done none of the assignments. And we're like, what's going? And the public school hadn't really informed us that he wasn't really paying it because he couldn't pay attention.
Right.
And once you stop paying attention, then you're behind. And
Yes.
then it's way harder to pay attention because you have no idea what anyone's talking about. So when it became classes over Zoom, we figured out that the only way to keep him engaged was that one of us had to sit next to him in every single class of his school.
Wow.
So Karen and I were there, and that's, you know, a 6-hour day or an 8-hour day while I'm trying to work and do the podcast and Karen's doing other things. And it's just sitting in a fourth grade class all day and continually going, Jackson, did you hear what they just said? Or do you understand what the assignment is? Or have now you need to do this reading. We'll do this reading together. Like that's literally what we're doing all day.
I had no idea. Wow.
Oh, it was fucking brutal. But suddenly he actually caught up academically.
Oh, that's great.
You know, because and this is also why Jackson is currently in a one-on-one school, a school where literally it is him and one teacher. Because we went, which is crazy, and it seems totally bizarre, but for him and his, you know, severe ADHD, this is, you know, keeps him engaged. So anyway, that was really brutal. For you and I doing the podcast, it was the easiest transition in the world.
100%.
100%. And I think like maybe a month into COVID, we're like, why the fuck would we want to drive, you know, 45 minutes to not that I don't like seeing you in person.
Of course.
But the podcast remained exactly the same. Like it's nothing changed at all.
There was a concern that we had initially that we'd lose the energy of being in the same room together and like cutting each other off. But like we transitioned very quickly from that to the point we were comfortable doing it. You know,
so when you said
with Matt Nose with Top 10, we had the same thing. Like there was a concern we wouldn't find the humor, the natural humor that we have with each other, but it transitioned pretty quickly.
Yeah. So when you said I'm moving to San Diego, I was like, all right. It's literally going to make no difference to how you and I do the show.
Yeah, exactly.
But personally, I think, you know, we talked about, it was very clear that my son had lost all social skills. And like when he had to deal with humans again, he had a sleepover shortly after COVID and it was fucking Lord of the Flies. None of these kids knew how to deal with another human in the room with them. Totally. But I think the same thing happened to me I think on some level, it's not that I lost my social skills.
Right.
It's that I think that the anxiety I had as a kid when I lost my friends and I became really, really lonely.
Yeah.
And that gun shyness of going out and exposing yourself to possibly getting hurt, I think that somehow came back. And it's weird. And what's so weird about it, like our friends Jess and Greg had a party recently.
Yeah.
And I went to the party and I was dealing with my son's social anxiety, which was a whole other trauma. But when I wasn't dealing with him, I was suddenly like, oh, I like these people.
Yeah.
I'm having fun. And I know this sounds stupid, but I was just like, oh, they like me. Like people like me. You know, like I had that weird sort of, because I just had all this anxiety. Exactly. Is this full Stuart Smiley? Like I had all this anxiety about, oh, maybe I don't want to go. I probably won't have fun when I'm in big crowds. Sometimes I get anxious and, you know, and yet then I went, oh no, I actually am having fun.
Yeah.
I do like these people. These people are happy they are happy that I'm here.
Right.
And I have to keep telling myself this to get myself out of the house, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have made no new friends in San Diego. Zero. Like I don't even talk to my neighbors. Like it's not because I don't like them or don't. Well, it's more a matter of like I have so many friends, man. Like I'm set. You know what I'm saying? And I think one of the positives and one of the negatives of having finding your life partner, like your permanent life partner, is that like I've got my friend and I've got someone who's with me 24/7. We enjoy each other's company. And that allows me to indulge in this feeling of I don't need to meet more people to become friends with them. Like I'm always happy when people subscribe or follow and we have interactions and conversations I have, hangouts I have with my patrons on my Patreon. That's always fun. But again, it's from a distance. It's over
Yeah.
the internet. It's not in person. And so I
Well, and
find
it's
that
professional, and it's professional too.
yes, 100%. And I find that I'm in a place where I'm like, it's not that I don't want to meet new people. It's like I'm not one of these people that needs to. You and I both know a few of our friends who need to be around people and
Oh,
who
yeah.
were going crazy around COVID because they couldn't be around people. I'm not one of those people. And so for me, I'm at a place now where I've got plenty of friends. I've got an incredible life partner, and sometimes I feel guilty because I don't feel the impulse to go out and join clubs and go and meet new people and do any of these things. It's just not in my nature. I live my life online, or I live my life with my partner, and that's my life, and I enjoy it. Honestly, I really do. I don't find myself starved for friendship. That being said, when I do see my friends in person, it's always fun. It's always enjoyable to see them in person. And in a controlled environment like a house, or like dude night we had at your house recently, that is where I am most comfortable. I know these people. If I get COVID from these people, okay, but at least I know them. But walking into a cesspool where of people who might not be showered, might not have the greatest hygiene, might not have the greatest self-care, like Comic-Con, no offense, I just don't feel comfortable subjecting myself to that. And it's either and I can concede that it's somewhat fabricated, but it's very real to me. So it doesn't matter if it's fabricated or not. I believe it.
So first of all, not wanting to be at Comic-Con is a perfectly rational sentiment. I mean, I haven't been since 2010 or something like that. It's been a really long time, and it was overwhelming then,
Yes.
And my experience in Comic-Con was, it was, if there was something specifically that I wanted to do,
right,
then it was fun. If not, the time hanging out with my friends was always fun.
Yes,
But the Comic-Con part of it was just I don't like huge crowds. It was loud. It was, and I'm just going like, well, what? And part of it, again, this goes to just like weird anxiety and trauma. My introduction to Comic-Con, my first Comic-Con, I think, was 1991.
Woo-hoo.
And it was with Jeff and Steve, and I was trying to break in as a comic book writer.
Right.
So I was going up to editors, Denny O'Neil, Mike Carlin, like all these guys with my scripts and my ideas, trying to sell myself as a writer. And if you think current Steve has some social anxiety and doesn't really do well at selling himself, imagine, 24-year-old Steve trying to do that. And so it was just me continually not knowing what to say, continually failing to do this thing, because artists, like, I don't, this is how artists would get work back in the day, is they had their portfolios and they would walk up to the editors and show their art, and that was totally normal, and get a critique. As a writer, it doesn't work that way, because nobody's going to sit down and read your story in the middle of the con, and so it was like, well, you just have to be social and hang out with all the Marvel and DC editors and get to know them, and I'm trying to do that, and it was always just terrible. I was terrible at it. It sucked. So Comic-Con for me, like, has hidden trauma because of that. But then also it's just like, loud and crazy, and, sometimes amazing times with my friends, and sometimes not. Like for me, like, I just go, I will say right now, and maybe this is good for me to say publicly, is like, on the one hand, I don't get lonely in general, and I really like my company. I'm perfectly content by myself. But I will say right now,
I like me. My wife likes me.
I do. My wife likes me. So, but I will say right now, like, spending the same night by myself, I'm not that, it's going like, oh, nothing happened last night. I need more things in my life where I'm challenged and with other people. And
that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not good for me living even though I'm content by myself, it's not good for me. And I need to do more getting out and being with humans,
Right. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I think for me, I'm with you. I enjoy my company. I can entertain myself quite fine. I'm never lonely. I miss when Lindley's gone. Like, she's about to leave for 5 days, coming up here next week. And I'm sure I'm going to have some tough moments where I miss her for like an hour or a day or whatever, or maybe multiple days. But I also know that like I can entertain myself, I can do whatever it is, and it's not to distract myself. It's more a matter of like I kind of like my freedom, and I think that's the gift of our relationship. Both of us are very committed to each other, but we're also very respectful of each other's need for independence, and so it just helps us. Like when she's like, I need to listen to my crime podcast all day in the kitchen while I make food prep for the week. Great, honey. I'm gonna go in the room and play my Tiger Woods golf on my PS5 for a couple hours and then watch a show or watch shows. And it's great. And then when I need it, she's very happy to give me that time and what have you. So it works for us, but I don't feel the impulse that you do. Like I don't feel the need, like you're saying, I need to go and I don't feel that. Like I'm good. If she
Well,
was if she was to pass before I do, I think then I would maybe have to confront that, Steve, and be like, okay, like you can't. I mean, unless I was independent. Honestly, if I was independently wealthy, Steve, I'd never leave my house. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't care. I'd hire a chef who would come and make my food, and I would sit all day, work out, watch my films and TV shows, and see my friends over the internet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would be quite happy living that life. And I don't mean that I become Howard Hughes. I just mean more a matter of like, hey, this is the pace I want to live my life in. Um, and so that's just my point of view of what you're saying, but I totally respect where you're at. You know what I'm saying?
well, I mean, the difference, one of the differences is you're in a relationship, and I've now been single for a couple of
Mhm.
years. So when I don't have, this week I
Yes.
have Jackson, but when I don't have
Yeah.
Jackson, I'm home alone.
Yeah.
So and I'm not necessarily saying I want to be in a relationship, because
Right.
most of me goes like, why would I ever want to do that again? you know. And Karen is a wonderful person. We're still very,
Yes.
very close
Sure.
friends.
Yes. Love.
There's no criticism of her, but like, I did a relationship for 30 years. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't, so it's not that, but
Yeah.
it is like, oh, I haven't, I remember when we did Taxi Driver, and shit, what's the writer of Taxi Driver?
Oh,
Who
Paul Schrader.
Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
And Paul Schrader, part of writing Taxi Driver came from the realization that he hadn't spoken to another human in 2 weeks.
Right.
And I certainly, there are certainly like, if I don't talk to you,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, have I talked to anyone in the last 72 hours?
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
not.
It's a
you
great
know
point. Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. Like you said, I have a partner, so I have someone I do talk to. But yeah, I hear you. I know that my mother is the same way you are, by the way, in that way. My dad died in 2008 when he was 72. My mom was 62. My mom said, that's it. I did it. And I was like, are you going to go out and meet other men? Are you going to, my mom said, no, I did that already. I did the marriage. Your father was a lot. I loved him, but he was a lot. And I did what I was to raise 3 children, and I'm good. And my mom is happy, quite happy, being on her own, doing her own thing, seeing her friends. Yes, my brother still lives with her, and so there's a sense of companionship in that way, and takes care of her when she needs it physically. But like she's never had an impulse to date again, to go meet men, not even for a second has she even remotely considered that or brought that up to me. Or every time I bring it up, she's like, "No, I'm quite happy." So I hear what you're saying, and I don't know if at this age, if I was to lose Lindley, God forbid, like in the next 10 years, I think I'd be in the same boat. I think I'd be done. Like I'm good. If I can sustain myself and live my life and be able to be comfortable in my existence, I don't think I'd be running out to try to get into a new relationship, because
you,
what's
you,
going to match
you
what I have?
right. Well, I mean, you found a great situation, it seems
I
like.
was lucky,
Yeah.
very lucky. And I went through hell
Yeah.
to get here. So yeah.
Literally you did.
Yeah.
Well, I think that helped you to find the right thing, to
Yes.
know to really understand who you were and know what you want. And I
Yeah.
think it also has led you to really appreciate what you found,
Yeah, it's a fascinating conundrum that I'm currently trying to navigate in some therapeutic way. And it may be time for me to go see a therapist again, because like two really big things happened where I felt betrayed, stabbed in the back, and destroyed. Yet they led to two wonderful things in my life. And I can't seem to let go of my anger and hurt of what happened in those other two instances, to forgive the people involved. My ex-girlfriend, who destroyed me for 5 years, my self-esteem, my self-worth, which had already been teetering on the edge. and by the way, she did it because she was navigating her own shit. So it's not me saying she's an evil person. It was like we met at the wrong time and she destroyed me and I allowed her to destroy me, right? But from that destruction came the suicide attempt. From the suicide attempt came the therapy. From the therapy came the healing, and from the healing is how I was prepared to meet Lindley and be and create this relationship. Collider fucked me over out of the blue on the second day of 2020 in January. But but a month later, I built and started my own YouTube channel. I got the equipment and I had to jump on everybody else who had to transition from COVID into trying to create something and couldn't get a microphone, couldn't get lights, couldn't get all this stuff. So it prepared me by teaching me what this business was like. And though the people there fucked me over, and the person who was the former owner fucked me over, like if they hadn't let me go when they let me go, there's no way I would have been as prepared and ahead as everybody else in starting my YouTube channel and focusing on the things that I needed to do. And I'm happier now, and I'm in a better financial situation than I ever was during those 3 years at Collider. So it's like those are those things that I'm trying to let go of the hurt that they caused in me in order to fully embrace and enjoy what I have in my life now, you know. And so
It,
those are things you navigate as an old person.
has the hurt dimmed over time?
Considerably. Like I would never have said what I said about my ex a couple of minutes ago. I would have never taken blame away from her. But like now I have the perspective of all these years later, because I mean, we're about to celebrate 6 years together, which is the longest I've ever been with anybody. Now I'm in a place where I can be like, look, she was going through a lot. And I clearly wasn't prepared to deal with everything she was going through. And I was caught up in my own issues of self-worth. And so when she was rejecting me, my anger and my frustration, my self-hate reached levels that I'd never experienced in my life. And so like I used to hate her for it because I used to believe that like she did it on purpose and she did these things and she, you know, treated me in this way. But the truth is that like she was really lost in her own shit. And she may not have even confronted her shit still. As much as I have things to fault her on, I certainly like had a lot of issues in that relationship, and we would get into these horrible, horrible fights because we were just toxic together and met at the wrong time, you know, and where I was at the lowest of my self-esteem and she was at transitioning out of a marriage, you know, and so I think I would have not been able to have understanding for it like I have now, for sure. And the Collider thing too, to a degree. No one's ever reached out, you know, and been like, "Hey, how are things? How are you? Look, I watched your channel. It's great to see that you've come up. I'm sorry for the way things went down. I'm sorry for how, you know, it happened. I'm sorry for all the shit we talked about you. I'm sorry for all the stuff all the shit we gave you on Slack. I'm sorry for all the ways we made fun of you." Like the production crew made fun of me a lot at Collider, like a lot. And I know other people love them and other people like their stuff, and they loved other people at Collider, but I was a person everybody made fun of, and it was so frustrating because all I wanted to do was to learn. And so I was aggressive in wanting to be on everything so that I could learn as quickly as possible because I wasn't in my 20s. And so I had to learn. But you know, people thought I was arrogant. People thought I was up my own ass because I wanted to be on everything. It's not true. It's because I wanted to learn, and I wouldn't learn. I can't learn without doing. I'm just not built to learn from a distance. I'm built to learn doing. And so, some people didn't understand that, and so they'd make fun of me on Slack. They'd make fun of me on emails. They'd make fun of me to my face. And so, you know, that was my personal experience. Another person who worked there probably had a wonderful experience because they weren't made fun of. They weren't ridiculed, you know, but I overcome it all because I want to do this. And so those are the things that I'm having the hardest time like letting go of, because none of those people reach out to me. Nobody, other than Christian and Mark Ellis, nobody from Collider reaches out to me and goes, "Hey, I watched your stuff. This is great." Or "I watched this," or "Hey, I saw your interview." None of them did. And so that hurts, you know, that hurts. So
So you might find it strange to hear me say this, but I have And I don't know these people really at all. I really didn't know
I know.
your ex very well. I've met
Oh, yeah.
her a couple of times.
Yes.
I certainly had been in Collider, and met some of those people, but I
Yes,
didn't really
right.
know them.
We recorded stuff. Yes.
But like for me, I have much more sympathy for your ex than I do for the people at Collider.
Yeah.
So and their treatment of you, frankly, just was really fun. And this is the thing too, is that's a business.
Yeah.
And I have very strong opinions about how the leaders within a business should treat
Yeah.
their employees,
Right.
and particularly within a creative environment. And they weren't. They was all cutthroat, nasty, mean, aggressive, and unsympathetic, and they didn't pay you well.
No, it was all the high school bullshit over again. It was.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, I wasn't the cool kid. I wasn't the popular kid. I wasn't the broy kid. I wasn't the, hey, toss it off like it's no big deal kid. No, I was the guy's like, I need to learn. I need to get on this. I need to get on it. Why am I not being considered for this? Why are you putting up roadblocks? Like, I want to get better. Help me get better. You hired me. I'm your only person of color who's working for you full time, doing the things that I'm doing. Yes, there were other people there of color, certainly Dennis and Wendy, but I was hired specifically to be an on-air host and specifically to be a writer and a report and to cover this stuff. And I was given opportunities. I'm never going to complain about that, but I was never given the golden opportunities, and it just became frustrating after a while.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like, I think I'm frankly, I think genetically incapable of holding on to anger for too long.
Well,
It just,
it's a gift. That's a gift.
I genuinely think it is. I don't think I'm doing anything. It's literally just like, I just can't, I can't hold it, up to a certain point. And certainly, there are many things that I have been very angry about that have happened.
Yes, I do know.
But I'm not angry about them now,
Right.
Like if I
totally.
certainly can take my brain back to that place and start to feel those things again, but I mostly don't. So I think I'm very, very fortunate in that, because I just see so many, and I see it with my son, and I see it with a lot of people that I am close to, and I just go like, it doesn't help you in the long
No.
run.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I think it might be time for me to start seeing someone, because it's like I want to let that stuff go. Because before I started down this path of this business, I felt I was in a pretty good place about how to let go of things. Like, I was friends with all my ex-girlfriends. I'd repaired a lot of my friendships with a lot of my friends from stuff from the early 2000s. I'd done the work. You know what I'm saying? But getting into this business where you are constantly criticized or constantly ridiculed or constantly questioned about your knowledge or intelligence from people who create fake accounts, or from people who have like no followers but feel the need to insult you in such horrific ways, and people don't know you, like, it's a tough business. You got to have such a thick skin, and especially if you're not immediately successful, which I haven't been, by the way. I can pay my bills and I make good money, we make good money, but like the I'm not at 100,000 or 200,000 subscribers where it's like I can do my thing and I feel validated that this many people follow me. You know what I'm saying? And so it's that constant thing of like constant narrative of like people wanting to tear you down. And so it brings up a lot of my shit from when I was a kid in high school. It's like this thing of like trying to prove myself all the time. I was always thought always was made to feel like the dumbest person in the room, the fattest person in the room, the ugliest person in the room. That was my constant state of existence until my senior year of high school.
When clearly little Jimmy was uglier, fatter, and dumber than you. I mean, that was just, that was so obvious. That's why they called him Little Jimmy, ironically, Yeah, I mean, it's all the same stuff. It's like, I didn't, mine was always you're not going to be popular, like and it was always the, like, getting picked for the, the touch football team or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was always picked last. And I'm like, I am not the worst football player here. Like, and it was very clear.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just like, oh, it's popular. I never got the role in the play. I never got the, like, it was always the sort of like, there are people that we know who will remain nameless, but may or may not be a geek buddy, who are just, everybody always likes them, and they will always get picked,
Yes.
and that is not a thing that I ever had, and I think it folds exactly into my experience going to that party where I had to remind myself, no, people actually like you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not that unpopular kid that you were in junior high. Like, you're not that person anymore.
Right.
Like, you are a person that people like to be around. And this is just revealing the full level of craziness that I have.
Yeah.
Is like, I know that there are people who, like, when I go up to the Bay Area, and there are people like, well, when can I see you? All of my various friends are like, will you have time to see me? And I
Right.
never have time to see them all. And I feel stressed out and
Yeah.
pressured
Yeah.
because all these people want to spend time with me, and yet simultaneously can feel unloved and unliked. So I could both resent the pressure that people are putting on me that they want to spend time with me,
Yeah.
and go like, nobody likes me. Now that's fucking crazy. And this goes back to my hermitness of like, no, you need to actually go out
Yeah.
and see people,
Yeah, and the big thing I still carry that I navigate is body dysmorphia. I have an unhealthy opinion of my body. Like, I have never been comfortable in my body except when I came out of the military in 1990. No, I came out of basic training, I should say. I stayed in the military for 8 years. But right now is the heaviest I've been in quite some time. And the idea of going to a place like, I was invited to the Entertainment Weekly party tonight, and I'm not going. Why? Because I don't want to be in a room full of LA Hollywood skinny people and feel even more self-conscious about myself, which I already do constantly every day. Because for my body, right? It's all subjective, right? For my body, this is the biggest I've ever been. I'm just north of 250. I'm like 255 right now. This is the worst I've ever been since, I think, the Jamie Jean years, when I was like 260, 265 from the frustration and that relationship, which she was great. It just wasn't the right thing. And so this is a weird place for me to be in. So the idea of being around everyone who's in shape and then having to talk to Hollywood people, it just doesn't, it doesn't interest me. And it triggers a lot of my shit. And so that's another reason why I'm staying home today and not going out to all this stuff, because I don't want to be triggered in that way,
It's so fascinating the ways in which our craziness align and the ways in which our craziness don't align.
That's true.
Because the weird thing, even though I've talked a lot, but recently, about like being out of the closet about being a fat person, is my body's dysmorphia is the opposite. At my fattest, I don't really think that I'm fat. Like, my image of myself in my head is as a person who isn't fat. I have to be reminded, like, that, oh no, you're a big fat person. Like, like, I had to remember. And by the way, my heaviness is, the heaviest I got to, which was right before COVID, was 314.
Yes.
314 that is real fat.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because of the health issues, the health implications.
Well, this is, that's what I say, and like, you feel it in my knees and in my back. It's all the health stuff. But that's what I had to, because I still think of myself as not big. Like, let me put that differently. I know that I'm big. It's not that I don't think of myself as a big person, but I don't have an image, like, I was talking to my therapist, it's like, where her assignment to me was, she was like, well, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And I'm like, I don't look. Like, I don't look at myself. It's like, when we're recording, and right now it's not true. There's the image of the self view in the upper right-hand corner of our little Zencaster thing. I always have my notes in front of it, because I don't need to see me, because when I see you, I go, oh, look at who's that fat guy, but I don't think of myself that way. When I see it, I see it.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I could look at myself in the mirror after a shower was when I was doing CrossFit, those 3 years of CrossFit. And when I had lost all that weight I was down to 211 pounds. So I was very happy with how I looked. So I was able to kind of look at myself. But now, as I said, I'm like 250, 255. I see the roundness. I see how the extra large shirts I wear, I have to stretch them out a little bit just to fit.
Oh, I hate that. I hate the shirt stretch.
Yeah, the shirts. Because I get super self-conscious when I'm wearing a tight shirt. My back starts to feel like it is disattached from my stomach. I get weird things that happen to me physically when I wear shirts that are too tight. because it starts to pronounce my gut. Again, my gut is pronounced, and when I can feel it, I can see it, then my back like compensates, and so I catch myself like in these random I have random pains in my body because I'm overcompensating or adjusting my body to try to hide my gut. And
Right.
that's what I deal with when I'm at my heaviest. And the thing is, the big mind fuck, and some of you guys who are older, because we are talking about getting older, this is part of life. Some of you who do have these issues, the weird days are the skinny days where you sense, hey, I don't feel as heavy today. I feel lighter. Like the extra large shirt's a little looser. What's this all about? And then you look in the mirror and you go, no, I look the fucking same. Why the fuck do
Yeah.
I feel skinny? Like it's a mind fuck. It's such a mind fuck. I have those days like that. And then I go, oh no, I've lost 40 pounds overnight. It's like, no, you haven't.
No,
No, you
that didn't.
haven't.
No, that didn't
You
happen.
just lost maybe a 1 pound for the day. And so it's just one of these weird things that your body does as I get older. So for me, as I get older. So yeah.
Two things. One is our friend Steve Jones has always been really good. He can remember, or Scott Manson's an even better example, who can remember all the movie opening dates and all that stuff, none of which I can remember.
Yeah.
I could pretty much tell you how much I weighed for any year of my life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, could be pretty clear. Like, okay, when I showed up at USC for film school, I weighed 216.
Right.
Like, you know, like that in 1994. You know what I mean? Like I could track that really well. When I lost the most weight in one run, which was when I did Weight Watchers, and I went from 278 to 198, and I lost 80 pounds.
I remember that. I remember.
Yeah. And that was too skinny. I don't ever need to want to be that skinny again. I was ridiculously skinny for me because I'm heavily built.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Weight Watchers, and it didn't work at all. I did exactly the same thing because it was the difference between me being in my 30s and me being in my late 40s.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, all that shit that used to work, that doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And it's a major fucking bummer to go like, oh, if this was Steve in his 20s, I'm eating great. I'm exercising regularly. Nothing going away at all. That's why I give myself a shot once a week now.
I think that's my fear because I'm in my 50s like you, and that's my fear now because nothing I do. Like the last 6 weeks, we entered into a program where Lindley is making me my salad for every meal except for breakfast, right? So lunch and dinner are salads. She is making healthy salads for lunch and dinner. I have lost a grand total of 5 pounds in 7 weeks, six weeks.
That sounds about right.
In the old days, I could lose 10, 15 pounds eating this way and working out. The thing is, I'm not working out. And that's the next step. And the fear I have is that I don't have the energy. Like, dude, I get winded taking a shower sometimes. That's how out of shape I am.
Well, you've always had very active showers. I mean, in your defense.
Fair point. Yeah, it's true. I used to work out in the shower. But no, like even walking up 2 flights of stairs, like I get a little winded just getting to the top of the stairs. And so, but I can go for a walk for like an hour. I can totally do that. It's just my body is not used to that anymore. So I have to accept that if I am going to start this process, I cannot do it like I did before, which is hour of cardio, hour of weights, 15 minutes of abs. That was at my height when I used to do it.
No, you can't start that.
I love that. So I have to start. And she says this all the time because she's been consistently working out. She's been great. It's like, you got to accept that you can only do 20 minutes and be okay with the 20 minutes and then build from there and build from there and build from there. But you've got to put your ego aside. And that's what it is right now is my ego is like, okay, accept this. Because I still think I'm 35 for a majority of the time that I exist in my world. But the truth is I am in my 50s and my body has transitioned to those places where I can't do the things that I used to do in the manner that I used to do them,
When my dad, I don't know why I'm bringing this up because it's heavy as shit, but when my dad got sick, he just, because he had ALS, as soon as he couldn't do a thing, like he could no longer hold a book to read a book, he stopped reading. And it was really sad. Anytime, like if he couldn't do it the way that he used to do it, he just stopped. Yeah. And my sister's going, no, you could an audiobook, or here's the computer, and you could bring the book on a Kindle, and you could just tap the thing to turn. He was like, no, if I can't do it the way I did it, I'm not going to do it. Wow. And that was really sad. And so it's like, yeah, you can't do it the way you used to do it.
Yeah.
Just do the 20 minutes. And but my guess is you're going to
Yeah.
do the 20 minutes and almost immediately you're going to get to 25.
I hope so.
You know, the one other thing I'll say, and this is just, I firmly believe that in general, if you want to learn about dieting, you shouldn't ask a skinny person. You should ask a fat person.
Yeah, it's true.
People who are naturally skinny, this is the one area where people's total lack of experience in something makes them feel like an expert.
Mhm.
I've lived my whole life and never gained a pound. Talk to me about losing weight. It's like, you don't know anything about losing weight. I know a lot about losing weight.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think I have probably lost close to 400 pounds in my lifetime.
Oh yeah, total. Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? Because I lost 80 and then I lost 30 and I
Sure.
gained every time I gained it back and then some.
Yeah.
And so I will tell you, even though you are right, you will not lose weight at the pace that you did a long time ago
Yeah.
in your 20s or in your 30s. That's good. Lose weight slow.
Yeah.
Because the big thing, because if you lose weight fast, then you did a diet and you got down to the weight that you
Right.
wanted,
Yeah.
and then you're just going to start gaining it back.
Yeah, because there's no lifestyle change there.
Right.
Yeah.
If you lose weight slow, it takes a really long time, but by the time you get there, you have hopefully changed your lifestyle. That's what you want.
Yeah, but this is why I resist any of the Ozempic stuff. By the way, my doctor, I'm legally qualified because of the weight that I'm at and the way the US government determines obesity, which I think is over 230 or 240 pounds.
It's the stupidest fucking thing in the world. The BMI is the stupidest thing in the world.
Yeah, the BMI is nonsense because it only has one body type that it bases its BMI off of. And there are 3 to 4 body types that people exist in.
So to be real clear, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
When I was 198 pounds and I was in unbelievably great shape and I lost 80 pounds, I was still morbidly obese by the BMI. Or maybe I was still obese. I was still obese.
Right.
It's fucking stupid.
It is. So like I've had the insurance that we're under, they have sent me letters because I'm at a certain weight and they're like, come into the clinic. We give out Ozempic. We can get you. And I see people, and I really see Hollywood people using Ozempic, which really drives me out of my fucking mind to see skinny people get even skinnier on Ozempic. And it's like, fuck you. But everyone's got their own subjective journey with their own body. So I have to always temper my anger at that through that prism.
Well, I'll say fuck you because it's making my Wegovy way more fucking expensive.
No, fair point.
So I very happily will say fuck you to those people.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not knee deep in that, so I don't know. But like I know someone I know was recently did the Ozempic and they lost 45 pounds in like 6 months. But what I keep reading is that people gain this shit back. It's like The Biggest Loser, right? You see those people lose all that weight and a majority of them put it all right back on because you can't live 8 hours a day working out. And so this situation I find myself in is now it's like, I've got to do it myself. If I go down the Ozempic route, I'm not really learning anything for me. So, and I don't think I should be on something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I need to just bear down, start the process, deal with my ego, deal with my shit, and start the process of working out. Because also, like you, I have always felt like I was going to die young, and then of course the suicide and stuff. But now I've got such a wonderful woman. I've got a life that I'm living, that I'm enjoying, doing the show with you, doing the show with the boys. The stuff I do on my channel. I actually enjoy what I'm doing, so I kind of want to live, which is a weird mindset to be in for me. I spent decades wanting to die.
I'm sorry to laugh.
No, please. But you can laugh. I got no offense on that. Yeah, it's true. I have spent my whole life thinking I was going to die or wanting to die. And so to be in this place now where I want to live, it's like, okay, well, you got it. Because here's the thing that comes up for me. It's my own issues. Like living means I am subjecting myself to the possibility of certain things happening to me. And then I'm stuck living a life in a certain way, right? But if I die young, then I can just get out of like aging into a horrible place in my body. Or, we see people like you and I experienced, our fathers randomly out of nowhere getting these diseases that just take them out. And so those are my fears, that if I do choose to live, some other shoe is going to drop and I'm going to be stuck in some physical condition or contract some disease or whatever. And it's like, well, fuck, I could have just died at 50, but this is where I'm at.
It's what's between here and there.
Yeah, I
because
know.
I'll guarantee it right now. That other shoe is going to drop.
Yeah.
You
So-
know,
yeah.
I mean, shit's gonna happen. Like, my mom just got breast cancer and is
Yeah.
doing fantastic. By the way, she's
Great. Yes.
like you couldn't imagine someone handling chemo better, and of course, her
Yeah.
attitude is always perfect and amazing.
We love
But
you.
like,
In case you're listening to this, I love you.
she probably is.
I hope she is.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that's the shoot. Like she had knee replacement surgery, got skin cancer, got breast cancer, and then got COVID all within 2 months.
Good God.
So the other shoe is going to drop. Like it just
Yeah.
is. Like that. Like people are going to get sick. You're gonna, like the jobs are going to change, careers are going to change. Like shit's just going to happen. Family members are. Yeah, I mean, like that's reality.
Yeah.
But it's the time between now and then. And honestly, where we started this conversation was old man stuff and anxiety and thinking about forgiveness and all that stuff is like, shit went and the shoe dropped with your ex and with Collider.
Yeah.
And now you've moved and all of those things have worked to make your life better.
Yes. 100%. 100%. Yeah. But this is where Lindley tells me all the time, like, you've got to learn to forgive yourself and you've got to learn to accept what life has given you and enjoy it a little more than you're enjoying it. And that's the big thing for me now is grace. Like I've got to give myself more grace. I'm so hard on myself. Like you don't know because you don't know me, but like you don't know you don't know my mind fully, but like the level of how hard I am on myself is astronomical, like astronomical. And she's constantly trying to be like, hey, look what you've done already. Look at all these things that are going, look at it. And so it's those things that I'm transitioning to because I'm scared. Like I'll be honest with you guys, I'm scared. I'm in my 50s. Yeah, I've got some money in the bank, but I don't know. Well, this job I've chosen to have with YouTube and everything, this could go away tomorrow. As I get older, how many people are really going to want to listen to my opinions on stuff as I get older? I don't know. And so I don't think it's a sustainable thing for the long run for me because eventually people are going to tune out. And so it becomes like, well, what's my next thing? And should I be learning a new skill so that I can transition into my next thing? So when this thing kind of ends, it's run. But I would love to keep doing this until the day I die because I really enjoy it. And so I don't know what the future holds, but it's all these future fears, which the forum used to talk about, future fears, that paralyze me sometimes. And I used to be much more carefree. That's another thing about getting older. You used to be much more carefree, and as you get older, everything carries stakes. And I'll tell you this, it happens overnight. You don't see it coming. And all of a sudden you hit some age. And I know people go through midlife crisis. I don't think I ever went through a midlife crisis, but there's a moment where you hit and you go, oh, fuck this. Shit, like retirement. Am I going to be able to live? How can I afford? And so all of a sudden, the carefree lifestyle that you've been living, all of a sudden becomes a fear that consumes you because you didn't do what everybody else has done. Oh, I got a job, 30 years at the job and made all this money, blah, blah, blah. Which doesn't always work out for them too, because they can get unceremoniously fired. Their pensions can get pissed away. All kinds of things can happen. So, but it's like that fear comes over you at some point in your late 30s, early 40s, where you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's a future I've got to plan for. You know what I'm saying?
Because it goes from I have endless time.
Yes, that's what it is.
until oh, that time is soon. Well, and the other thing is like, I say what we, obviously we might have strong feelings about Bill Cosby, but the opening in the pilot, the scene in the Cosby Show where he takes the Monopoly money with Theo and shows him how he's going to live his life. That is that when you get to your 40s and your 50s, suddenly that math is like, oh, healthcare costs and the car is going to break down and I'm going to have to, how am I going to pay rent and where, how much Social Security am I getting? All those things become real. They're real things to be concerned about. There was something else I was going to say and I totally lost it.
Oh, sorry. I talk too much sometimes. Sorry.
No. Well, and now you just reminded me of the thing that I had to say, which is you were talking about forgiving yourself. And I think it's fascinating that we're right in the middle of ordinary people. And ordinary people, that's the cathartic moment is he has to forgive himself. And this is why we talked about it in part one. The connection to Good Will Hunting is it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Like forgiving yourself is like a huge thing to do. And I am the same way. And I will give you a perfect example of it. And it is from our relationship and something that happened yesterday,
Oh,
which is there had been that you had made a typo on the YouTube thing.
oh yeah, on Mash.
And I'm sure you were beating yourself up about it.
Yes.
And I wrote to you that, of course it's no problem because it happens all the time. In me writing to you, I made a typo, which I thought was funny.
That's right.
But the big thing is what I didn't say was, man, I wish I could forgive myself as easily as I forgive you for making a mistake that we both make. Because when I've made that mistake and you've said, hey, dude, you made a typo on whatever,
Yeah.
I beat myself up.
Yeah.
Even though, and yet I'm
you
perfectly
shouldn't.
have no problem forgiving you, but I have a problem forgiving myself.
And you shouldn't, because when I clue you into that, it's more a matter of, hey, just to let you know I did this or I changed this. It's just so it's clear, and it's out of respect I'm letting you know, so you don't think I just did it willy-nilly, and so
Same.
yeah, which I appreciated last night. But I did beat myself because dude, we're just a few weeks into this transition. We've made this transition in our show where I'm posting more of the episodes and making sure everything is squared away in the artwork and all this stuff, and so I'm hyper vigilant about it and I'm hyper aware of it. I came back on Thursday night at 10 o'clock from Comic-Con. I was like, okay, I've got to upload this thing. I got to make sure it gets done by midnight. I'm going to watch Ordinary People while I do this, while I put up. While I put up MASH. And so, I'll put up part one. I'm going to finish watching Ordinary People. And so I think that's where I was like sitting there going, okay. And I was hyper vigilant about it. And because I want it to be right. All the artwork, all the stuff, I'm actually enjoying it. And so, when you texted me, I was like, oh, fucking hell, man. How did I miss that? And so, because I'm checking everything, it surprises me when I miss something, because I feel like I'm being hyper vigilant. So I had to be like, no, Steve's right. He's like he said, he's overlooked stuff at times, and I've got to say it's okay. I hope he's not mad at me. Blah, blah. So I go through that whole thing, right? The constant narrative when I make a mistake.
It's funny, just to fill you in on my thought process. Is that because the reason I found out about the typo was that someone I get all the YouTube comments come into my email.
Oh yeah.
So it's not that I saw it; it's that someone pointed it out.
Right.
And then I literally went, "Do I tell John he's gonna beat himself up? Do I tell John? Do I fix it myself and tell John I fixed it? Do I fix it myself and not tell John, or do I tell John and have him fix it? And which one?" And then I went because it felt like a betrayal to do it behind your back. But then I knew you would beat yourself up when I told you. And then that's what I went through. I was like, no, you fix it yourself and tell him. That seems to be the right way to do it.
I always appreciate it. If you fix it, great. If you can fix it, great. If you are in a position like out somewhere with your son or whatever, and you text me to fix it, I will fix it. I don't think, I don't want you to go through a whole rigmarole worried about how to, because it's an easy thing to fix, but I just, I want us to get everything squared away. So yeah,
it's funny. I hit record almost an hour ago.
Oh God. Oh, sorry. We should stop. Okay.
No, we will. But I think honestly that what we just described is part of why this show's been around for 8 years.
Yeah.
Because we genuinely care about each other's feelings. We want things to be good. You care a lot about making sure you get the posting absolutely perfect. It's like we both care a lot, and we both care about each other. So maybe that is the perfect place to end this. It's not a short. It's not a medium. This is definitely a long. This is a Cine-Files epic. But is that we started talking about our anxiety, and we started talking about our old manness. And we also talked a lot about friendships and me going out and whether or not to be a hermit. And I think a good place to end is you and I both look out for each other, you know?
100%. And no comments that we've made about our friends should people be running off half-cocked about. Like, they're just our friends, and I'm sure our friends could do a podcast talking about some of our weirdness or whatever.
Jesus.
And so I just want to make sure that's clear. We love our friends deeply, and years of friendship has been built there. So it's just a more matter of like certain things happen, and you're being honest about how it affects you. That's it. And it's not judgment on the other person. It's just honesty about how it affects you. So the issues are all mine, not theirs. Just to clarify.
Well, some of the issues are theirs.
For me, I'll say.
I just had an image in my head. It's like somehow you're out of town, you're on vacation with Lindley, and so they end up having a Geek Buddies After Dark where
Without
Shannon
me.
and Vogel just talk about everything that's wrong with John and Steve and tell stories about us all night.
There are people listening right now who would be like, I would actually watch that. I would listen to that for sure.
I would do Streamlabs and Super Chats all day to
Oh,
get those stories. So I think on that note, thank you for tuning into this very impromptu Cine-Files epic. Thank you for all of your suggestions. Of course, this is just sometimes, sometimes John and I just like to talk, and sometimes recording it is fun,
I blame our patron who asked us about old man stuff a few weeks ago.
That's right.
I blame him for putting it in our minds. Yeah.
Yes, it's your fault. So thank you for helping to continue our Cine-Files discussions. We appreciate everything, all your support, both on Apple Podcasts and on Patreon. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris, here with my partner, John Rocha.
You're going to do this to me again.
Yes.
You're going to do this to me again.
Yes. It's basic. By the way, happy birthday, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Since it is your birthday, what better way to celebrate your birthday than through the wonderful torture of Cine-Files FMK edition?
Dun, dun. We should come up with music for this. Dun, dun, dun. Something like that. Wait.
And
there we go. FMK.
I would like to start you off with a question that came from patron Tanner McGuire.
Ooh, good name.
Who would like you to choose between animation studios.
Ooh.
Your choices are Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar Animation Studios, and Studio Ghibli.
Ghibli, huh?
Ghibli, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Ooh, wow. Wow. He says the complete filmography. So all the animation films. Well, I feel like you have to. Ooh, you know what? Some people are going to have a different. Yeah, I'm going to tell the truth. I guess I got to marry Disney because I have to marry Disney. I mean, it's just such great, consistent content. No matter who the new kids are on the block, Disney still finds a way to endure and set themselves apart. So I have to go with Disney as the married. I'd have to fuck Pixar because I think that would be making love to Pixar. Pixar would be fun. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that I would enjoy that and the unusual. Plus, I would get little mini quickies, which are the shorts ahead of the actual films, which are varied and interesting. And so I would have to kill Studio Ghibli. And I'll tell you why. As great as those films are, and they are artistic animation masterpieces, I'm not schooled enough in animation to really appreciate those films. And so sometimes I catch myself falling asleep about an hour into these Ghibli films. I still finish them out. I still appreciate their greatness, but I don't fully grasp the greatness away like an animation expert would. So I can lose that one and still be happy with Pixar and Disney.
This one was tough, and I have reversed myself at least 3 times while you were talking because you made some excellent points there, I think. Yeah. And here's what I finally come up with.
Okay.
And again, this is what this game means you're going to have to say some terrible things.
Yes.
But this is what I've come up with, is that there was no question I have to marry Pixar because it's the consistency. And you get the full emotional journey. You get great comedy, you get great pathos, you get great adventure, and the batting average is really, really high. Yes, there are a couple of maybe only 2 or 3 stinkers. Yeah. And the vast majority of them are really good movie, or at best a solid movie. So I am marrying Pixar, which leaves me in the choice of killing or fucking Walt Disney or Studio Ghibli.
Wow.
And here is where I went with. I'm like, well, where's the best sex? I mean, if we're going to fuck. Yeah. And I think Studio Ghibli, man, there's some crazy stuff. You're going to have some crazy sex. You're going to have mutant sex and demon sex and all sorts of odd creatures and all sorts of beautiful nature and all sorts of design. Whereas the thing about Disney, and this is where I finally, is if it's the whole studio, we are not just talking about 20 or 30 classic films, of which some of them are masterpieces. Right. We're also talking about The Lion King 3 and direct-to-video aerial adventure and the Aladdin cartoon and all sorts of other crap. And you know what the other thing too is? frankly, and again, maybe I'm revealing too much. If you're going to talk about classic cartoon shorts,
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of Mickey Mouse.
Oh.
Like, I don't think I will go watch a Bugs Bunny cartoon right now,
yeah.
and they'll be awesome. The
Right.
old Mickey Mouse cartoons I don't like so much. So even though there are masterpieces in the Disney studio, there's also just all sorts of stuff that I don't ever want to watch. So I don't want to be married to it, and I don't want. And I decided I don't want to fuck it. So I had to do the crazy thing, which is to kill the greatest animation studio in the history of the world. That is what I've decided to do.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
So you sacrificed the greatest animation to marry its hotter younger sister.
That is, yes.
That is horrific, man. That's oof. All right, man. If you can live with that decision, I respect it.
It's the only decision I could make, and be true to myself, be true to my heart. That's what I went for.
You did change it 3 times. So I don't know how true to your heart you'd be. I think right now,
True to my heart right now.
Right now, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to this one. From Fernando Perez. He says, "Here's a crazy one: FMK, Martin Scorsese, John Ford, or Stanley Kubrick." Oh, and Stanley Kubrick. Woof.
Oh, this is really hard.
Steve, you're a director. Oh, wow.
Fuck. It's really, really hard because you're killing a great filmmaker. I mean, that's
either way.
Yeah.
Someone incredible is dying here.
I don't know why we do this to ourselves. I'm going to marry John Ford. I just think in terms of the vast scope of movies, I mean, actually at this point, Scorsese's pretty equal to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I want to be married to Casino, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver. That doesn't feel like the marrying kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I love that. I don't want to be married to Raging Bull. I don't want to be married. There's so many movies that I adore, but I don't want to be married to them. So I can't marry Martin Scorsese.
You'll never fuck me right, Ray. You'll never fuck me right.
And John Ford, I mean, just, in terms of American cinema, there are few more influential, more important, or more consistent. I mean, when Orson Welles and Kurosawa and all those great directors say their greatest director hero is John Ford.
Yeah.
So I'm marrying John Ford,
okay,
which leaves me the choice of killing either Martin Scorsese or Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kill Kubrick. And that's but this is an impossible choice. You could say, wow, but if I had said it the other way, you would have had the same reaction. Like it's like I am choosing a whole bunch of movies that are great films from Martin Scorsese and that deal, frankly, and here's the other thing about it, with the exception of the very, very fucked up Lolita.
Yeah.
Kubrick is not sexy. Like you don't go like, man, the eroticism in 2001 or Clockwork Orange certainly deals with a lot of sex, but not in a way that I want to fuck. And the same with Lolita. So in the choice between that and Scorsese, I am going to fuck Scorsese. I'm going to marry John Ford, and I am killing one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, one of my favorites, Stanley Kubrick. But I had no choice. I had to do it. It was self-defense.
Doing it because he's dead. I think so. He's not going to find out about this. This is
fair.
I join you in marrying John Ford. How could I not? As the outlaw, as a lover of Westerns, I have to marry John Ford because he endures. And as you said, he influenced so many filmmakers. So he's a foundation. That's a strong marriage. Now, will it get cantankerous? Will it get moody at times? Will I have to deal with some mood swings and some angry retorts? Yes, absolutely. But I also will look at the artistry and marvel at the artistry of John Ford, and I will always love his movies, And so, yes, I agree with you. The marrying John Ford makes sense. You and I differ, though, on the K and the F part of this situation, the F and K, because I think I would F Kubrick and kill Scorsese. And the reason is because I'd have to kill Scorsese before Scorsese killed me. Because of Casino and Raging Bull and Goodfellas, my life is constantly on the line. No amount of kunduns is going to erase that from my mind. So, in my opinion, I have to kill Scorsese before he kills me. And I think Kubrick, and I agree with you, though not sexy films, I know that after we have sex, we're going to have some amazing conversations in bed.
Well, that's true, yeah.
And so for me, that's where I kind of Yes, have I had sex with women that I don't necessarily find that intellectually stimulating in my past? Yes. But now where I'm at, I kind of have always been very clear that I am turned on by the intelligence of a woman along with her attractiveness. So even if it's just for fucking, I still want to be in like inspired by a conversation or challenged by a conversation. So that's kind of how I look at it. Now, if you'd caught me in my 30s, I would agree with Steve because I liked living on the knife's edge in my 30s. I dated some questionable people in my 30s and with, shall we say, dangerous characteristics. And so I would have absolutely gone Scorsese as the F part of the equation, but not at this old age that I'm on my birthday. So that's my answer.
I think it's well considered. I can't argue with any of your points. Our next suggestion comes from Peter Bylone,
okay,
who has an interesting one because the way he frames this, I'm not entirely sure that I disagree with, but the choices are very interesting. Which he says, "How about movies about things that shouldn't be interesting and yet they are?" And his 3 examples are Fishing from A River Runs Through It,
okay,
Sideways with Wine,
yeah,
and Poker for Rounders. Now, I think people might disagree with the premise that poker, wine, and fishing are things that shouldn't be interesting. But I do see why certainly fishing is not the most cinematic of sports, to get into.
Yeah. So the choices are FMK, Fishing from A River Runs Through It.
Yes.
Cards from Rounders.
Yes.
And then what's the third one?
Wine in Sideways.
Oh, man.
Now, I'm not sure if we're picking between the movies or we're picking between the hobbies.
Maybe the mixture of both.
Yes.
That's so. Yeah, I would absolutely kill Fishing and River Runs Through It. Not even a question for me. I've never been one of those people that like that movie, nor am I one of those people who's enjoyed fishing. Fishing bores me to fucking tears. I've tried it many, many times growing up in Virginia, going to the lakes and fishing and what have you, gone to those places to fish with friends and their fathers, because my dad hated fishing too. So, it's just never been a thing for me. This is tough though. I mean, I love Rounders. I love the card playing. Wow. But the wine and Sideways. Okay, so I have to go with Wine, I guess, because then Sideways as the Mary, because that's like wine is something that I used to be really into and would go to wineries and stuff. I don't now because the Lady Outlaw's not into wine and she gets headaches and she always offers to go, but I can't enjoy it if the other person isn't enjoying it with me. So I have to, but I really appreciated the variety of wine. I like the foundational how can I say this? Endurance of wine, the strength of wine, and the varied ways that you can enjoy one from different areas. And I like Sideways as a movie and the madness of it all. But in the end, the message of it being like, you know what? It's about letting go and moving on. And it's okay to be a little crazy and be happy for the person who's moved on from you if they've found where they're supposed to be, because they clearly weren't supposed to be with you. And it's very difficult. So that to me feels like enduring marriage type stuff. Rounders, I love Rounders. I love card playing, but it's dangerous. It's fun. It's exciting. You could get beat up by a bunch of cops halfway through the movie, or you can snow a bunch of rich kids out of their money. So there's a risk factor there that I like about in my fucking. So that doesn't involve getting killed by Scorsese. So I will go with Rounders as fucking. What are your answers, Steve?
So just to be clear, you killed Fishing, you married Sideways, and you are fucking with fucking Rounders.
Yes.
Okay. I 100% agree with you about Rounders. That's the sexiest of the 3 movies.
Agreed.
It's the sexiest of the 3 habits. So fucking Rounders, that's a done deal.
For sure.
I am really torn between maybe who I want to be and aspire to be and who I sadly might be more like. And this is why I say this is like, as you know, I'm a huge foodie. I love, great meals. I love great food. I love that thing that's part of Sideways, which is going to the place and finding the great thing.
Yeah.
The Paul Giamatti character is exactly what I hate about people who like those kinds of things. So that side of like I have to find the perfect thing, and it's the snootiness and it's the I am special because I can taste the special thing. And it's like, that is the antithesis of, that's like my fear of, I never want to be like that person.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, is that I've gone fishing many times. I've spent lots of times in the mountains. I do love nature,
Yes.
but no, I don't particularly like fishing. And of these three movies, A River Runs Through It is my least favorite. It's never a movie that I saw it and I was like, well, that was fine. But it's not a movie I particularly like. So I think what I have to do is fuck Rounders and also marry Sideways. But I really dislike this one element. It's like I aspire to be a person who would go to the mountains and fish and commune with nature, and not be a person who would go to the snootiest wine tasting and do that. That's not who I want to be. But I guess that is who, to some degree, that's who I am. So I guess I'm giving the same answers as you.
Yes, you do have a snootiness to you. But I think that's
that hurts.
But that's well developed. I think because it's not a negative. Like we have to stop. Can I go on a little bit of a diatribe? We have to stop being ashamed of who we are because the lowest common denominator doesn't like who you are. Like that's the thing that we have to kind of get rid of. We are shamed by so many people in society because of how we naturally are. And I don't mean we like everyone. I don't mean we like, snooty people. I mean we like everyone. We, everyone has a thing that they are ridiculed by the lowest common denominator for. Or you're not manly enough, or you're too, elitist or snooty, or you're too finicky or whatever. These are these things that people hang on us because either they are themselves not into anything that would allow them to be snooty, or allow them to be a bit defensive about. And so these are these things that need to end. So if you're snooty about food, snooty about wine, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because you're trying to achieve the best possible experience enjoying something you really love, And so I'm making a little defense for people who feel like they've been vilified for being snooty, because I think there's nothing wrong with being snooty about something when you really actually know about it and care about it and can speak about it knowledgeably.
Well, I think that the Cine-Files is a good example, I hope, of what we would want to be, which is we care a lot about movies. We want to watch the best movies, analyze the movies, dig as deep into that thing as we possibly can.
Yes.
But I don't ever want to be a person that yucks other people's yums or is exclusive about things, you know?
Right.
Because while I do love great food and I've eaten some great fancy food, I love great tacos and I love a great burger, and I love, there's not it should come out of joy and not out of exclusivity. I guess.
But if you're served something terrible, if we were to do a terrible episode of the show and tell you it's a good episode of the show, that wouldn't be good either, would it?
No.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And fans of our show would not be called snooty for being like, hey, this is a lower quality show.
Right.
A lower quality episode.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying. I'll probably get killed for that, but whatever. All right, let's move on. It's my birthday. Have patience for me, people. Let's move on to this one. Ryan Lieb. Is this our last one? This might be our last one. Yeah, we're getting to that time, right? So
I might have one more special one for you.
Oh, nice. Okay. Ryan Lieb says, can we do authors? Absolutely, Ryan. Especially if these are authors that have had their stuff turned into film or television. So here we go. J.R.R. Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, and Stephen H.W. King. No, I just added the H.W. because everyone else is getting double R's. Steve, your thoughts? Which one?
Several thoughts. The first is, it popped up on my Instagram feed. It was like a panel, and it was George R.R. Martin and Stephen King on the panel.
Oof.
And George R.R. Martin said, first time caller, question for Mr. King. How do you write so fucking fast? Which I just loved. So, second interesting thing. So my son recently had to read The Hobbit for school.
Oh.
And so I said, which has always been my deal, because I go through books so fast, because I go through audiobooks. I said, look, any book, if you want me to read it with you, because I love books too, I'll read it at the same time as you're doing it in school, and then we can talk about it. So I listened to Andy Serkis reading The Hobbit.
Ooh.
And then I found out that he had read the entire Lord of the Rings series
Right.
Holy shit. He is one of the best audiobook readers.
Really?
I mean, part of it is when he's doing Gollum, he's Gollum, like
Yeah.
he's Gollum, but he manages to do Ian McKellen. He manages to do all the characters in ways that are just
Wow.
fantastic. And so my appreciation for those books, which, they're formative books for me,
Yeah.
but it's gone way up just listening to Andy Serkis do it.
Wow.
Like even Tom Bombadil and stuff. I was like, nah, Andy's kind of got me in on all this.
Yeah.
So, because I've always felt that the Tolkien books are like formative in terms of the genre,
Yeah.
but weren't ever really my favorite books.
Okay.
I have read more Stephen King than any other author, period.
Yeah.
Because he's written so much, and I always like him.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin, of the three, might have written the best stuff when he was good,
Mm-hmm.
and the worst stuff later on, and now he's just disappointed. I mean, book 4 is so boring. It's a fucking slog of Game of Thrones.
Wow.
The stuff that House of the Dragon is based on is a slog and not that interesting. Book 5 is a little bit better, and now we're waiting forever for 6 and 7. And so I'm not angry at J.R.R. Tolkien or at Stephen King, but I am angry at George R.R. Martin. So I am going to kill George R.R. Martin, despite the fact that I think there are things like the turn of Jaime Lannister in the third book is one of the greatest written things I've ever read, ever, period.
Yeah.
Like he is so good, but I'm still going to have to kill him.
Okay.
And this is just so hard. I guess I'm gonna fuck Stephen King just because it's maybe more exciting, and marry J.R.R. Tolkien because that's what established this entire genre. That's my answer. I might change it in a minute.
Of course. Listen, that was a fantastic answer, and you struggled through it because you have a love and appreciation for all three of these authors. So I totally respect that. I, on the other hand, do not. And so I'll tell you this. I'm actually killing J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm going to choke him, and I'm going to take it real slow, too, just like his books.
No surprise.
Real fucking slow, buddy. Just letting you know. Again, read Tolkien when I was in my teen years, read through those books, Two Towers and all of that, and certainly enjoyed it for what they were. But I don't find myself at no point, even after seeing those movies, that I find myself wanting to read them again. And even after enjoying the Hobbit trilogy, which I did, I didn't want to open up those books and read them again, or that book and read it again. I'd rather put on the animated films again because I love those. So I absolutely killed J.R.R. Tolkien. I would have to marry Stephen King because I love his books.
Yeah,
and
I read a lot of it.
We talked about it. I think we talk about it on the fly. We're recording this after we're recording the first part of the fly, and I mentioned how Stephen King was, how David Cronenberg got me into Stephen King, and Stephen King's books have just been ones that I can go back and reread over and over and over again, and just savor them because he's a psychological author. Like the way he dives into the psyche of the people in the books to explain why they're doing the things that they're doing, I think is fascinating. It's kind of pop psychology, but it really works within his books. And this idea of so many of them want to put their hands in the flame. So many of them want to put their hands in the flame. And it's what leads to everything that happens in those books. And I love that. So for Stephen King, there's just such a warm place in my heart about it. And he can evolve, he can change, he's still doing it. So that means there's a solid marriage there. And George R.R. Martin, absolutely sex, just because there's so much of it in his books.
It's a good point.
Right? And there is that element of violence, which makes it a little dangerous, which is sexy itself. And so, I would have to say George R.R. Martin is someone who I'd fuck. But I'd also get frustrated because I bet at 3 a.m. I'd text him from the bar and he wouldn't text back, and I'd get very frustrated about it all. Or he'd set up plans and then say that he can't make it after, or just ghost me. So that's part of the frustration of being with George R.R. Martin as a fuck buddy. So there you go.
Yeah, well, that's why you're not marrying the guy.
No, exactly why I'm not marrying him. Yeah.
All right, for our final FMK.
Okay.
Since it is your birthday, I thought we would create a birthday present for you.
Oh, wow.
Which is to choose between holidays. The first holiday being your birthday. The second holiday is Christmas morning. And the third holiday, and I was really struggling with this. I was like, could be Thanksgiving. Is it New Year's Eve? And finally I went, because you are a patriotic red-blooded American,
Oh,
the 4th of July. You get to
wow.
choose between your birthday, Christmas morning, and the 4th of July.
This is wrong. This is so wrong. Oh my God. Oh, this is so wrong. You're appealing to my vanity and my patriotism at the same time. That's horrible. Oh, dude.
Happy birthday, John.
It sucks. Thank you. I guess, yeah, no, I have to marry Christmas. Like, there's no question I have to marry Christmas. And yeah, I mean, I just love I mean, even now, like I was thinking, I know this is antithetical to the feeling of Christmas, but I literally want to decorate on September 1st. Like,
Wow.
Fuck Halloween, fuck Thanksgiving. I don't care about those holidays at all. I give thanks every day to people that I want to give thanks to in different ways. So I don't need a holiday for that. And Halloween is, I don't know. It's never been a big deal to me. And it's sometimes an excuse for people to dress up in the weirdest outfits or the sluttiest outfits. It's not my jam. But Christmas, I mean, I think even more so as the world feels like it's falling apart. And I got to get off social media because really it feels that way 24/7 on social media. Christmas has never been more needed, I feel like, than now. And I say that, of course, with a little bit of like, you know, during World Wars, I'm sure it was needed very much as well and things of that nature. So, but like, I just feel like Christmas is so necessary now. People need to remember, and me too, by the way, I'm not trying to judge anyone else. Me too, by the way, that like, we're all humans and we're all trying to exist in the world and try to make it a better place and try to enjoy our worlds and appreciate people in our lives instead of fighting with people in our lives. It's not easy. So I think Christmas is important. So I marry Christmas because of the sentiment and the feeling and the endurance of Christmas. I have to kill myself logically. I mean, I have to kill my own holiday, my birthday, because as much as I enjoy it, as much as I love it, it's nowhere near as important as Christmas or July 4th. And I think I have to fuck July 4th because July 4th can get crazy, y'all. I've had some crazy July 4th. I've had some crazy birthdays. Don't get me wrong. But July 4th is something that appeals because I love my country deeply. Not only from the military thing, but also my immigrant parents instilled a love for this country in me since I was a child, an infant. And so for me, that is something exciting and fun, and yes, can be sexy. So I like the idea of July 4th being what endures and what I have sex with. Although I won't marry it, I'll definitely enjoy it and have sex with it. And I have to kill my birthday because, as I said, it's not as important as those other two holidays. So there you go, Steve. That's my answer.
So my short answer is that my answers are the same as yours.
Oh yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah. As a dad now, particularly, I never cared that much about my birthday. And particularly, I was away for the weekend with my family for my birthday. They're like, we all want to celebrate your birthday. And they were constantly like, well, what do you want? What can we do for you? What's going to make you happy? And I'm like, I just want everyone else to be happy. Like, that's what I want. I don't want any conflicts. I want everyone to get along. I don't care. What I get doesn't really matter that much to me.
You're malleable. Yes.
Yes.
In that sense. Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer to kill my birthday.
Yeah.
Like Mike Vogel, I'm one of those strange Jews who grew up celebrating Christmas. And there are many Jews out there who will say, well, that totally revokes your Jew card. You are not Jewish anymore. I had one person, by the way, who I worked with, when she heard that, she said, well, that's like saying you love Hitler. Whoa. And I'm like, no, it's not saying that. Yeah, no, there's some pretty intense feelings around some of these issues. But I did grow up celebrating Christmas. I love all the stuff. I love the traditions. I love the stockings. I love, we read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas on Christmas Eve. Like, I love all of those traditions. And while I'm not that comfortable or interested in me getting stuff, I love giving stuff.
Right.
So like, I love the whole, I'm same as you. Merry Christmas. And yeah, I've had some wild 4th of Julys too. So let's get the fireworks and have a couple of drinks and let's go crazy. Let's love America the way it wants to be loved. That's my answer.
Let's have some fun having sex with America. America.
So that is our Cine-Files special FMK birthday edition.
Ew.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your suggestions.
Yeah.
We'll take them throughout the year, and whenever we get to our next FMK, we'll go for them. We really appreciate them. We couldn't make the Cine-Files without you. And for my partner, John Rocha, I'm Steve Morris, and we'll see you on another Cine-Files short.